Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to Let's Start Story on What If Harry Became the Ultimate Slytherin with his godfather's blessing and had harem. So do 4 blue hearts comment. Be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video, and please share with your friends and watch till end. Also check out Patreon for I have upload Harry x Hermione uncensored spicy version, link in description.
It was difficult for the untrained eye to notice where the rain ended and the tears began. The figure, which turned out to be a bespectacled boy around the age of 14, raised his head towards the sky. They were emerald, as emerald's orbs. Frightening. The shadows around his eyes showed him to be some kind of demon. He ignored the raindrops falling into his eyes, staring at the sky, wishing it would take him and end his misery. Unblinking, he gazed towards the heavens and prayed to anybody that might be listening to relieve him of his burden. Sighing in disappointment, he trudged inside and up to his room. When he got there, he saw 2 owls perched on his windowsill waiting patiently to be let in. Warily, he opened the window and gave the owls some owl treats, and then snatched the letters off their feet. He threw them onto the bed, and then quickly changed into the black robes, which belonged to Sirius. They fit him now. He was tall, nearing 6.5 feet, well built. The warning to his relatives made them fill him up with food and make him train with Dudley. He was a surprise package this time round. He was grateful for Harry saving his life last year, and they got on civilly, if not like a house on fire. Harry chuckled, putting on the toning belt across his stomach and 2 patches on his biceps. It had been Dudley's, but it would not fit around his stomach, so he gave it to Harry. He dropped onto his bed, careful not to damage the belt. He leant back and opened the first letter. "Hello Harry, how are you, mate? Hope them muggles are treating you well. What have you been doing during the holidays? Anyway, things are a bit dull around here at where there is not much to do but study here with Hermione and Ginny. It's bloody boring, I tell you. Anyhow, we will see if Dumbledore will get you out of there soon, preferably in time for your birthday. Take care Harry, see you soon mate Ron, Hermione and Ginny." Suddenly Hedwig flew in through the window and ripped the letter from his grasp, and then ripped it to shreds. Surprised, he merely gaped at her until she dropped a half-burnt piece of paper into his lap. Ignoring the second letter for now, he straightened out the parchment and read on. "Albus, I have written to you to apologize on behalf of the ministry and myself for my actions last year. I take full blame for all the decisions made barring the criminal charges brought against Dolores Umbridge. Furthermore, I apologize to one Harry James Potter, who despite my incompetence and lack of any respect towards him, kept on stressing the truth. My only regret is allowing my cowardice to overrule my sense. I have sent this letter to you because of your request to train certain students, namely Harry James Potter, Hermione Jane Granger, Ronald Arthur Weasley, Ginevra Molly Weasley, Luna Laura Lovegood, Neville Frank Longbottom. I give permission and I enforce an exemption from the laws of underage wizardry to those named above. I trust you will inform Mr. Potter of this development. I have admitted my failings in a public statement, and have given an oath on my dear departed parents' graves, that I will correct my errors and do my duty which was given to me when I took this office. I would have resigned, but I will not leave the wizarding world in a peril in which I had a hand in strengthening. Once again, Albus, my sincerest apologies, and I hope we will bridge that divide, ultimately killing the murderous scum and ridding the world of his foul presence. Yours sincerely, Cornelius Oswald Fudge, Minister of Magic." "Oi Harry, this is Fred and George. We rescued this from the fire a few days ago. They are training the others to protect you and are going to get them to spy on you. If you were to take the advice of ours, I suggest you act as if you do not know. Everyone knows you know the prophecy and want to hear it, but Dumbledore has been held back by some magic forbidding him to tell anyone. Well, old partner of ours, if you were to speak a password, which opens a map followed by a certain Valentine song, maybe you'll find something useful." Winking face angry beyond belief, he focused on the second part of the letter. Rolling his eyes, he spoke out. "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. His eyes are as green as a fresh pickled toad. His hair as dark as a blackboard. I wish he was mine. He's really divine, the hero who conquered the Dark Lord." He felt something fall into his lap. He lifted it and it appeared to be a bag of some sort. Cautiously he looked inside but could not see anything. Throwing all caution to the wind, he turned it upside down and a trunk of all things fell into his lap. It was a bottomless bag. He put the trunk, which was so small it could fit into his own one. Putting it onto the floor, he opened it and gasped. It was a sorcerer's trunk, the same one Mad-Eye Moody had in his 4th year. There were 5 rooms inside, a bathroom, a bedroom, a kitchen and a dueling room. The last room was a library. He climbed inside and entered the bedroom. Lying on his bed was a Pensive. He stepped inside and became immediately attentive as it looked like it was an order meeting from Remus' point of view. Bastards, they're discussing me, without consulting me. Well, we will see what they are planning, then piss them off by disrupting their plans. Start memory. Dumbledore spoke first. Remus, we cannot allow Harry to know about his exemption from the underage wizardry law. He may use it against his Muggle relatives, and we do not need another Voldemort. The familiar feeling of icy rage threatened to overcome him, but he mastered his emotions even though everyone, including the 4 out the 5 who accompanied him to the Department of Mysteries, the exception being Luna, who glared at Dumbledore, even though it went unnoticed. Now that is out the way, I believe we should train our young members in dueling and apparition so that they can protect Harry if the need arises. This will also be kept from Harry. Agreed? Everyone nodded his or her heads in agreement. Ron spoke up, all right sir, but won't Harry know when we defeat him in duels and such? I mean, he'll find out some way or another. What can we say then without him realizing it? We'll address that problem once it arises. Hermione's next words stung him extremely. Professor, Harry is so rash and arrogant in his belief of his skill. I mean, who would duel with a Dark Lord and try to bring back a dead body when their lives are on the line? Yes, Miss Granger, we realize that. That is the reason why you are being trained. If you were to come across such a situation, you will stun him and Porky to the hospital wing, where we will modify his memory to think he was attacked by a Death Eater. Harry watched on with growing rage. It calmed slightly as he could see Remus, Fred, George, Mad-Eye, Bill, Charlie, and Mr. Weasley exchanging looks and mouthing back to the Weasley twins, let him know. Dumbledore continued, Severus, you have done well in the past, with your legilimency keeping us informed on what he is thinking and such matters. Continue to do so and maintain your cool facade. The edited memory of his father in the Pensive has him thinking that his father was excessively arrogant, and his feelings of disgust can be used to our advantage. For those of you who do not know what we are talking about, we edited a memory from Severus' past, showing him in a bad light. He believes that his father was no more than a typical bully. We have imparted this onto him so that he may listen to our instructions. I hope that he will be so repulsed by the memory that he will turn to us for help. Sirius has little or no grudge against James Potter, nor against Sirius Black. He has been working for me since his 4th year. Severus was usually the one who instigated the fights, at my request. We realized that Harry, as the heir to Gryffindor, would be the one to defeat the Dark Lord. Harry is not aware of the fact that when his father fell in love with Lily, he showed her all his memories of Severus' transgressions, upon which she agreed to keep up the act and had a relationship with him in secret. Even his closest friends do not know this fact, as you can see, given the reaction of Remus. Harry has been trying to suppress the memories of that night, where his mother and father gave their lives up for him. Therefore he has overlooked the fact that the man gave his life up for him, which could be considered highly honorable for such a supposedly arrogant man. Dumbledore let the Order process this information before continuing. Harry is also not aware of the fact that it was not his mother's love which saved him but his own power. We have encouraged this belief so he does not join Voldemort, as that would make his parents sacrifice for nothing. One more thing, we cannot let him blame himself for Sirius' death. We have 4 of our members for round-the-clock surveillance. He put up his hand to silence the protests. You saw how Harry risked his and his friends' lives for Sirius. In this state, Harry is a danger to himself and everyone around him. Remember Cedric. Most of the people were convinced, especially Molly Weasley, who proclaimed, he is a danger, reckless and naive, however good his intentions are. Remus clenched his fists in anger, then stormed out of the room. End memory. Start memory. He was in the Gryffindor common room after a Quidditch match and a party was in full swing. His heart clenched in loss as his eyes found the familiar face of his father, who kept glancing towards the couch. Following his father's gaze, tears streaked down his face as his mother came into view, and he could not turn away from the scene. His father looked at the redhead again and she nodded slightly, causing James to grin before walking towards her. The noise died down as all the occupant of the room stared towards the couple, as James spoke up. Lily, would you like to accompany me to Hogsmeade this weekend? Harry took special notice of the mischievous twinkle in his mother's eyes and frowned when she responded. Potter, I have no wish to become one of your trophies, so I think the answer is no. Harry winced as she finished her reply, then refocused on his father who hadn't appeared to given up yet. Lily had turned her head back down to the book in her hand, but James knelt before her and used his finger to lift her head so she was staring into his eyes. Lily Marie Evans, I swear on the resting place of my dearly departed parents that if you give me a chance, just one chance, I'll never let you go. The words were said with such sincerity that all the occupants in the room silently willed her to say yes, Harry included. So I will ask you again, will you, Lily, do me the honor of accompanying me to Hogsmeade this weekend as my date? Harry watched his mother's reaction closely. Her bottom lip quivered and she opened her mouth, but no words came out. The familiar look in those green eyes showed him that she could not help but say yes. A few stray tears traveled down her cheeks and she whispered, I'd love to, before fleeing to her dormitories. The silence in the common room was disturbed by a series of slaps on the back of one James Potter and the whoops of delight from the marauders. End memory calling upon his meager occlumency skills, he cleared his mind and detached himself from the rage he was feeling at the first memory, but allowed him to feel proud to be compared to James Potter once again. He sat around in a daze for a few minutes or so before exploring the rest of the room. Noticing an envelope with the Black family seal on it, he opened it hesitantly, dreading the contents. His fears were proven reasonable. It was a letter from Sirius. Taking a deep breath, he focused on the letter and began to read through. To the young half-blood prince, this is a letter from one Sirius Black, godfather to Harry James Potter. Hello there, pup. How are you? Not too good, I would imagine, probably blaming yourself for everything that goes wrong in the world. I have only one regret, that I could have broken out of Azkaban earlier and taken you away from them blasted muggles. Dumbledore has got something planned for you. I don't know what it is, but I know it is not beneficial to you, maybe even life-threatening. I think all these years he has been testing you and I hate him for it. I want you to do me a favor, I want you to live for me, spend money on yourself. In other words, spoil yourself rotten. Now I am not telling you to become the next Malfoy, but live a little, pup. Life is too short to be serious all the time. Enjoy it. I have never been one for writing good letters, so I am going to finish it off by telling you that I love you and I have every faith in you succeeding. I love you, your parents loved you, and Remus loved you since the day we found out Lily was pregnant. One last advice is to trust only Alistair, the Weasley siblings, and Arthur, and of course Remus. Other people judge you too quickly, they do not understand what you have lived through, and they will make decisions for you. Remember this, boy. Sirius, Padfoot, Black PS say, I solemnly swear that I am up to no good. He flicked through the next parchment, realizing that it was Sirius' will, with him being the sole benefactor. Teary-eyed he said the words par Sirius request and gasped as something appeared in the corner. It was the flying motorcycle from his dreams. Of course. Hagrid had borrowed it from Sirius on that night. On the front there was a key with a curious-looking jewel attached to it. He touched it and felt dizzy. Then he rested a moment. He realized that he knew how to fly the bike. Sirius had thought of nearly everything. He dropped onto the bed in a daze and felt something underneath him. It was a vial of black potion, with a note attached to it. Harry, this is an illegal potion that has been passed through my family. It allows quicker learning and a photographic memory, along with increasing your understanding tenfold. Sirius. Merlin, I love you, Sirius. I swear I'll kill him. Drinking the potion, he fell asleep inside the trunk. He had learned to apparate at will, silently and quickly, followed by teleportation, which could be called sliding across the ground. It was for short distances of around 30 feet, very useful in duels, as he had seen between Dumbledore and Voldemort. He had also learned to dance. Yes, dance. He had seen gymnasts on TV. They could dodge gracefully without looking to put too much effort into it. He had easily picked up on hexes, curses and shields, some of which only he could use as the power required was enormous. Sword fighting had been fun. The dancing lessons allowing him perfect balance gave him a perfect base, and he could consider himself an average swordsman. Especially since he had been training with Uncle Vernon, who had been a champion in his younger days. He had the best summer of his life, and it was at Privet Drive of all places. He had found out why they had accepted him to protect and why they had treated him the way they had. Flashback, he had walked downstairs to get something to eat. Dudley had just stepped out of the house when Harry was confronted by Vernon and Petunia. Sit down, boy. We need to talk. About what, Uncle Vernon? About why we accepted you, and why we hate magic. This piqued his interest and he found himself listening closely. He had been horrified to learn that Dudley had a twin sister who had died at 7 months. At the hands of Voldemort, she had the same eyes as him, and that was why they both loved him and resented him. The Dursleys had never hurt him physically, but they accepted they had neglected him, because those eyes would stare back at them, haunting and accusing. They also resented Im for surviving when their own daughter had been killed by the same curse. He did not think that it would be good to tell them that it was because of his magical power or that his mother had protected him because it would make her feel more guilt. He now understood the glint in their eyes when they had looked at him. It was the same look Sirius had when he looked at Harry. Self-loathing. He cursed Dumbledore to hell. He had known their aversion to magic was nothing to do him, and both had suffered. Aunt Marge was an ungrateful old hag, but Vernon could not reject her. She was his only sister. End flashback. Ever since then they had been having fun as a family of sorts. A couple of visits to the zoo and cinema allowed them to have a better relationship between them. He held his school things with one hand and touched the portkey, which Moody had delivered early, lemon drops. He landed in Sirius' room, trying to keep his grief in check as he deposited his things inside the room, then got dressed in some of the finest robes courtesy of the trunk. Finally he placed his charmed contact lenses, a gift from Vernon on which he had performed the charms. Night vision, seeing through any sort of invisibility spells or cloak, and they brought out his eyes. He tugged irritably at his long hair. He thought he looked like a woman with the ponytail, but Aunt Petunia had asked him to keep it. He looked like a young lord. The silver earring baffled him. Why in the hell had he gotten that? He surmised his first ever taste of beer had probably led him to do so. Suffice to say he would not be going near the stuff anytime soon. He'd rather stick to butterbeer. Changing his mind, he put on his dragonhide boots, and then walked downstairs where the Order was waiting for him patiently. The Order watched as the door opened and a healthy-looking Harry Potter walked through the door, gracefully. Over a foot taller than the last time they had seen him and no longer wearing glasses, he exuded a confidence even Dumbledore could not match. Greeting everyone with a curt nod of the head, he took his seat between Remus and Bill, ignoring the empty space between Hermione and Ginny. When he sat down they began to eat in silence until Dumbledore spoke. "Hello Harry, how was your summer?" "As if you care, you old bastard. It was the best summer ever, sir." Dumbledore's eyebrows shot up into his hair. "Really, Harry? How so?" "Well, sir, you see, I got angry with my cousin and I turned him into a pig, but I didn't get a letter from the ministry, so I kept on doing magic throughout the holidays and they stayed away from me," he lied. Dumbledore looked at him disapprovingly, but Harry did not turn his gaze away from him. He felt the Legilimens curse and put up his walls. The potion had automatically organized his mind. No wonder it was illegal. Harry spat out, "Don't I even deserve common courtesy from you, you old bastard?" Dumbledore was shocked, as was the rest of the Order, but their shock lay in outrage. Before he could formulate a reply, McGonagall had reprimanded him. "Mr. Potter, you forget who you are speaking to. Such impudence will not be tolerated. If he keeps out of my mind, ill-treat him with respect. It is common courtesy to ask for permission from a friendly wizard before entering their mind, but then again I'm just a weapon, aren't I?" McGonagall looked ready to retort. "Minerva, he is right. I apologize, Harry. Please carry on with your dinner." They settled down again. "Harry, where did you learn occlumency from?" "I taught myself, as old Snively over there could not teach. If he had to save his life." Silence reigned as Snape's normally emotionless mask slipped, to be replaced by a rapidly reddening face. He pulled out his wand and shot off a Filipendo curse. Harry dodged, then ducked a second spell. Leaning forward he smashed his fist up and across Snape's chin. The sickening crack echoed around the room. Harry did not even bother looking at Snape, just sat down and began to eat again. "Harry James Potter, how dare you attack your professor? Do you have no manners at all?" Harry was fuming. "How dare you speak to me like that? In my own home, no less. He attacked me first, like the blustering coward that he is, just as he attacked my father when his back was turned. He is a little bastard, a pathetic boy in a man's body, and I will take neither insults nor attacks against myself from a failed greasy-haired Death Eater. You people turned your backs on me by keeping me away from everything, even though it was my life. Now that naive little child is dead, he died with a man called Sirius Black. I'll thank you, to not question my actions in my own home. Good night." Harry stormed out of the room, furious at himself for his lack of control. He already knew what could be the result of rash decisions. Sirius had paid for one. He decided to return to his room to cool off by reading some defense books. Thanks to his newfound ability of reading and retaining information via the potion, Harry had now a level of knowledge which would put Mad-Eye Moody to shame, but did not have the technical skill or the feel for duels, as he had never been in a duel that mattered apart from in his 4th year. Other times he believed himself lucky, this time he wanted to win on skill alone. He could dodge and weave, but his own technique was too open. His spells would have an extra 2 feet to travel, ample time for someone to move out of the way. Focusing on the wall using his contacts, albeit a little forcefully, which resulted in his vision going past Ginny's, Luna's, Hermione's and Tonk's clothes. However much Harry had grown up, he still was not experienced with girls, therefore his face reddened, not that he took any steps toward turning away. He watched mesmerized as the girls shifted positions, slightly reasoning that he was just a man and that they had been intruding on his life by reporting his actions to Dumbledore. Ginny must have asked Tonks to show her real form because Tonks suddenly got 2 inches taller, blonde hair and blue eyes. She looked stunning, especially with Harry's see-through vision. Perfect curves, he thought. Slapping himself on the head, he placed an extendable ear next to the wall and listened in. I am going to go into his room and force him to calm down. He had no right to talk like that to the professor. He needs to learn to control himself. Hermione? Of course it is. Why should I control myself? The Order is doing a good job of controlling me, he thought bitterly. For the next 3 hours he studied, keeping an ear for Order information in the next room. During the study time he came across some interesting things. Firstly, at the death of Sirius he became a Lord, Master of the Potter family and the Black family. This meant he had to follow some family laws. He drafted the ones he would put in the Potter-Black family line. Must act impeccably, must dress impeccably, must fight evil at all times, whatever the cost to oneself. To fight with honor, not as a coward, to continue the family line, traditions. Show no weaknesses, yet do not become arrogant. Use your place on the Wizengamot for the right cause, however much opposition you face. Eliminate murderers, rid the word of their presence. Vengeance must be swift and deadly. Uphold the minor traditions and laws within our families. This was followed by a long list of minor laws he would adhere to. Then he wrote at the top in blood-red lettering. There is no light and dark magic, there is only power. And those too weak to resist it. Hermione had finally gathered the courage to come in and rant at Harry, so when she walked in she expected him to cower from her gaze. She was surprised when he looked up, then back down at his book, easily dismissing the fact that she was standing there. Opening and closing her mouth like a goldfish, she steeled herself but was stopped once again as Harry placed some obscure privacy charms around his bed. Furious that she did not know how to dispel these charms, she stormed out in a huff, missing the smirk that came across his face. At tea time, he headed back down to the kitchen and seated himself next to Hestia Jones, a pretty witch who Sirius had been getting close to. She looked tired and upset, so he reached over and gave her a one-armed hug. She smiled at him gratefully. It seemed as if the whole table let out a breath they had apparently been holding. Evidently they had expected him to remain angry long into the night. Pouring himself and Hestia some tea and some cake, he sat down to listen to what Dumbledore was going to say. Good evening, everybody. As of yet we have no news, good or bad, concerning the current situation. Therefore, I just wanted to discuss the guard who will escort our students to Hogwarts in 2 days' time. I suggest a guard of 12 selected by and including Alistair should escort them under invisibility cloaks. Any sign of trouble and you will be port-keyed back here. Save yourself some time, Professor. I'll be making my own way there, alone. If anyone follows, I'll disappear. Harry continued. No, I will not tell you how I will be going there, and yes, it is a secure way of traveling. Dumbledore just nodded, although he shot a pointed look at the Order when Harry turned back to his food, indicating that Harry would be followed discreetly. 2 days later, Harry Potter stepped out of Grimmauld Place and pulled out a motorbike to the amazement of the others. Seating himself, he activated the invisibility charm and switched on the speed booster, effectively covering the Order members behind him in mud. Then laughing, he activated the controlled Wingardium Leviosa charm, which coupled with the speed booster headed towards King's Cross. Harry Potter was not in a good mood. 3 days into the school year and he still had not been on his own for a minute. He needed to keep up the charade, and someone had stolen the map and his invisibility cloak. There were only 2 suspects, Ron and Hermione. This was why he was so delighted, inwardly, when he caught Hermione and Ron kissing with the map in her hand. Let us join them here. Hermione, what are you doing with the map? I have been looking for it for a long time. Hermione looked stricken, and when Harry summoned the map from her, Both she and Ron's faces were white with worry. His eyes traveled to the rings on their fingers, Order of the Phoenix members' rings with an invisibility charm on them. Not that it stopped Harry's charmed eyes from seeing them. "I solemnly swear that I am up to no good." He looked inside and he snapped. No, it was not a good time to be Tonks, who was currently clueless, as she had stayed behind Harry all the time. Suffice to say, when Harry whipped around and shot a blasting curse at her, she did not realize until she had been hit. Still seething, Harry summoned the invisibility cloak. This only served to incense him further, for on the collar of the cloak was written, "James Henry Potter." Tonks had herself back up, but Harry was faced away from her. She did not see the Tom Riddle-like expression that crossed his face. She shot a petrification spell at him, which he slapped away with a hand. The few moments her shock had removed any thought dodging another blasting curse. This time Harry did not hold back. Minerva McGonagall was extremely irritated. Some of her Gryffindors were making a racket, and she expected them to try to lie outright or flee as soon as she opened the portrait. Imagine her surprise when she saw a red-faced Ron and Hermione dueling one extremely angry Harry Potter, with a bleeding Tonks on the ground. She barked out, "Stop, what is going on here?" They stopped, leaving a panting pair of prefects and one smirking Harry Potter. "Well, Professor, it seems that these three people were responsible for my invisibility cloak and map going missing." Two words unfamiliar to her flickered through her mind. Oh shit, Albus had given her specific orders that she was supposed to side with the others whatever happened. Therefore, she was relieved when her favorite student spoke up. "He is lying. We were just returning it to him when he saw Ron and I holding hands, then he attacked." "Mr. Potter, that will be 30 points from Gryffindor and a month of detentions. I will not tolerate any more events like this. Is this understood?" The hurt look in his eyes would haunt her for eternity. The blank expression that followed chilled her to the bone. It was the expression she had seen on James's when he had hurt Severus. It was the last time during James' last year that anyone uttered the word mudblood. The state Severus had been in was worse than when Severus returned from a particularly painful meeting with he who must not be named. "Crystal." Harry struggled to keep his voice even, and some of the bitterness escaped his lips. He turned back to the stairs and climbed up, dropped onto the bed, put up some vicinity detection charms, some privacy charms, and finally locked everything into his trunk. Then he shrunk it to the size of a matchbox and transfigured it into a necklace, which he placed around his neck before falling asleep. The next morning he awoke to his vicinity charms blaring trumpet. It appeared as if Ron had planned to play a prank on him and had been caught in the magical net. McGonagall came in, and this time Harry did not even blink when she verbally grilled him for it. Nor did he point out that magical nets only work when they feel the trespasser is a threat to the caster. He reasoned, "One more chance. If she does that one more time, I am going to make her regret it." He dressed up quickly, then shot off towards the Great Hall, sighing as all eyes turned towards him as the person behind made use of the distraction and sat down at the Ravenclaw table. Harry chose a seat far away from Ron and Hermione, seating himself instead between Lavender and Anna Rosenberg, a pretty seventh-year witch who was distantly related to her. His arrival caused several girls to blush, but their musings were cut short when Dumbledore spoke up. "I have an announcement to make. We have selected the top 4 students from each house to take part in a dueling tournament, and the winner of that tournament will face a professor. The first matches will be between the housemates. The top 2 will advance from there. In the unlikely event that duelist should beat the professor, she will receive 100 points for their house and 1,000 galleons for their vaults. The first matches will be between the housemates. The top 2 will advance from there. For each victory against a student, you will receive 20 points. Here are the names of the students in order of the highest results per house order. Slytherin: Blaise Zabini, Draco Malfoy, Pansy Parkinson, Theodore Knott Ravenclaw, Cho Chong Michael Corner, Marietta Edgecombe, Luna Lovegood Hufflepuff, Zacharias Smith Susan Bones, Ernie Macmillan Ernest Williams Gryffindor, Harry Potter, Hermione Granger Ronald Weasley Neville Longbottom. Mr. Potter broke 3 records in last year's Owls: Transfiguration, in which he broke his father's old record; Charms, where he broke his mother's record. The third was the Defense Against the Dark Arts record, in which he broke a record held by me. He has the best results, as those 3 are the highest ever. He is followed by Blaise Zabini, a brilliant witch who almost equaled the potions record set by our own Professor Snape. Enough of an old mont's rambling, let the duels begin." McGonagall barked out, "Potter, Granger, Yes, thought Harry, it's payback time. They both stepped into the now clear and widened aisle and bowed to each other, dropping into a dueling stance. Granger started with an incendio spell, which he deftly avoided, not even having drawn his wand yet. Granger seemed to be an Auror's technique called Crouch Shadow. It was inept in the full light of the Great Hall. This technique was appropriate in night missions and in hit-and-run situations, again only those performed at night. Suddenly his face took on a thoughtful frown, then grinned as an idea came to him. Summoning Hermione's books discreetly, he charmed them to block any spells that came his way. A few incendio spells later, Hermione watched horrified as her books burned, allowing Harry to ice-arm her without trouble. It went unnoticed in the hysterical Great Hall, but amidst the laughter Dumbledore declared Harry the winner. As Harry sat down, he looked across to the Slytherin table. Blaise Zabini was watching him with a raised eyebrow and a smirk. She then nodded to him. He nodded back with his own smirk and mouthed good luck. Blaise defeated Pansy and Malfoy defeated Not. The winners of the other duels were Ron, who beat Neville, Cho, Luna, Susan Bones and Zacharias Smith. It was Harry's turn to duel again, and this time it was against Luna. It might as well not have taken place, as 12 seconds later Luna was sent flying through the air to land with a thud onto the floor, out cold. Harry thought to himself, Harry 2 filthy scum 0. Then 2 down 3 to go. The quarterfinals consisted of Harry, Blaise, Ron and Malfoy. Harry was drawn against Malfoy, whilst Blaise would have the first duel with Ron. Harry watched what he considered an even duel in which Ron's strategic skills just pushed him to victory. Harry wanted to finish this as soon as possible, but it was not to be. Harry wished to save his skills for later, when he would pick Snape for a duel. Malfoy started with some good spells, and Harry used his time to block and dodge whilst searching for a weakness to exploit with weaker spells. Finally, after 15 minutes of trading spells, Malfoy was hit with a stunning spell and Harry was declared the winner. The final was a disappointment. In the end, Harry was extremely angry with himself, as early in the duel he had launched a very powerful spell, which knocked Ron out but caused him to come under the scrutiny of the headmaster. The winner of this tournament is Harry Potter, who will face a professor of his own choosing if he is victorious over the defense teacher who was delayed for personal reasons. Please give a hand to Richard Marchbanks. Harry bowed while all else clapped. He watched his opponent and began the duel with several powerful bludgeoning spells, all of which were blocked with a red shield commonly known as Protega Maximus. Harry ducked and sent a stunner followed by a Petrificus and surprised Marchbanks with an Expecto Patronum. The blinding light was all he needed to launch a simple stunner and catch the professor out. Silence descended the Great Hall as they processed the last few minutes. Harry Potter had defeated the defense teacher before he had even given a lesson. Dumbledore started to clap and was followed by the rest of the hall. Harry was feeling tired, so he decided to duel Snape next week, to which he agreed. Extremely tired, he asked for a glass of water and sat down to read his letter. He was so surprised he spat out water and reread the note. Dear Harry James Potter, currently, an investigation is underway into and concerning the events which occurred on the evening of June 26, 1995. We have been informed that it took place within the Department of Mysteries. Dolores Jane Umbridge has insinuated that you were at fault. It is our duty to investigate such claims. Therefore we require you to attend a hearing in which your guilt will either be confirmed or removed totally. This will be a rare hearing. Ms. Umbridge has been accused of abusing the students under her care. If you have any evidence or involvement in this, please bring them so we may analyze or use them inside the hearing. Yours sincerely, Cornelius Oswald Fudge. An exhausted Harry Potter Black lay down on his bed inside the trunk, hoping for a few hours of sleep before he attended his trial, but it was not to be. He had to get ready and read all the law books he had with him. For the next 2 hours he read and memorized all he could, then went in for a quick shower. 25 minutes later Harry stepped out of his trunk, wearing black robes with a moving image of a hawk with its wings spread perched atop a tower. He tied his hair back in a ponytail and walked towards the headmaster's office. He was not looking forward to today. He had an idea. He whipped out his wand and whispered, Priori Incantatum. He rifled through the spells until he reached the Cruciatus, on which he muttered, Deleterious. Finally, he arrived at the gargoyle muttered, Lying licorices, and stepped inside to be greeted by Dumbledore. Welcome, Harry. Please take a seat. Would you like a lemon drop? Thank you and no thank you, sir. How are you this fine morning? His false cheery voice seemed to fool the old man. Fine, thank you, Harry. Do not be nervous about today. Justice will prevail as it always has. Yes, the way justice was delivered to Lucius Malfoy or Sirius. Dumbledore did not answer him, but his inclined head acknowledged Harry's point. Come, Harry. I fear it is time to depart. He held out a galleon, which was the portkey, and they landed with practiced ease just next to the reception. Names please. Albus Dumbledore and Harry Potter here for hearing 4A. The names registered in the receptionist's mind and she looked up in shock. Follow me, sirs. Still stuttering, she led them to a secure room, which looked into the courtroom. For the few minutes they waited, Harry explored the room with his eyes. It was magnificent, like a widened horseshoe shape. The Wizengamot surrounded all the key people in the trial. Harry found it as intimidating as he did last time, but he put up his mask of total calm lest people get the wrong impression. Harry had to put in a mammoth effort not to kill Percy when he came and escorted them to their appropriate places in the courtroom. Harry sighed inwardly, relieved that Madame Bones would be leading the proceedings as his beliefs in Fudge's sincerity did not extend to reliance on his competency. A hush fell over the attendants of the hearing when she stood up and started the normal speech before a trial of this caliber. We are gathered here today to investigate the charges filed by one Dolores Jane Umbridge against one Harry James Potter. They are as follows. Opening and maintaining an illegal defense club spreading lies within the school which caused nationwide panic. Association with Sirius Black uprising against the ministry. Breaking and entering into the Department of Mysteries. Destroying a prophecy orb casting the Cruciatus on an unidentified Death Eater. Mr. Potter, how do you plead? Guilty to number 3, 5, and 6, not guilty to the rest. The crowds gasped as they saw that Harry Potter had been associating with Black, the betrayer of his parents. Mr. Potter, those are serious charges. Are you prepared to justify your reasons or to accept the consequences? Yes, I am. Very well, Mr. Potter. We will begin with those to which you have pleaded guilty, as I believe they will be considerably less time-consuming. The prosecutor may proceed. Well, Mr. Potter, my name is Andrew Goodfellow. At Harry's nod he continued. You pleaded guilty to the charge of associating with the murderer Sirius Black. It escapes my mind the reason why you would do so. The prosecutor inwardly froze when the boy who lived's eyes lit up. Well, Mr. Goodfellow, it is because I knew he was innocent. I have seen Peter Pettigrew with my own eyes, and I know of the events, which occurred on Halloween 1981. Also, the traitorous rat's actions up till now have further increased my hatred of him. The next time I see him you will receive several packages containing his severed limbs. Everyone paled. Even Dumbledore, even though he was aware of Harry's hatred towards the Death Eater. The prosecutor was unsure of how to proceed. The boy's hatred indicated that he was very sure in this belief. Last time Fudge had been at the receiving end. He however had a duty to prosecute, therefore he hoped this brutal statement would go in his favor. Mr. Potter, firstly that is punishable with a life sentence in Azkaban, and second, what proof do you have of the innocence of Sirius Black? 1. No, I will not go Azkaban because I invoke the ancient law of Merlin, concerning both the Fidelius charm and the life debt. Those who have been betrayed by their secret keeper may seek vengeance upon them, even to the extreme of taking a life or using the unforgivables. This only applies to the traitors of any wizard or witch who are not in association with the dark side. Those who have been wronged grievously by he or she who owes them a life debt, then they can punish the offender by death without fear of prosecution. If the people who have been betrayed or wronged do not survive, this right is automatically extended to their children and best friends. Percy was staring at the law book in horror. Harry smirked when he saw this and continued, will the memories from my Pensive be adequate? Oh shit, he has a Pensive? Goodfellow thought frantically, trying to find a reason not to allow it, but it was too late. Madame Bones had spoken up. Mr. Potter, I believe that it would be very beneficial for the assembled witches and wizards to see through your Pensive. Please remove any memories that are distinctly of a personal nature. Harry had put his memories and Remus memories from the Pensive into his head and now stood up to place the Pensive in the corner where everyone could view. He did this so nobody could accuse him of altering the memories. It was impossible to do so inside one's head. He used his wand to extract the memories into the Pensive, then used the special view features to show a large-scale version of the night in the Shrieking Shack, the night at the graveyard, and he added a memory, which he would show later on when confronted with the other charges. Amelia Bones watched horrified as she saw Black screaming at a very much alive Pettigrew, then you should have died. Died rather than betray your friends. As we would have done for you. The Ministry was going to owe Mr. Black over 100 million galleons, and that was before the boy would confirm Black's death. Then they would have to triple the amount to his beneficiary unless he waived it, and looking at the boy's furious face, it was not going to happen. Soon the memory faded out of the shrieking shack and into the graveyard where the dark surroundings made everyone shiver. The Potter boy stood up and walked over to Amos and his wife, putting his arms around them. It seemed as if the memories were still raw, as the boy looked towards the ground, his face pale. All bar Potter and Dumbledore jumped when they heard the words, "Kill the spare," followed by Pettigrew's voice, "Avada Kedavra." The stunned silence was interrupted by a scream from Mrs. Diggory and a heart-wrenching sob from Amos. The Daily Prophet reporter trembled as Potter paused the memory. She watched as the prosecutor, Mrs. Diggory's brother, wept silently, trying to regain his composure. She saw Dumbledore sitting there, head down, his beard scragglier than usual, and then she turned back to Fudge, who was hyperventilating. She believed he had good reason to, as both she and Fudge had tried to discredit Harry all through last year, and he had gone through all this coming out sane. Added to this is the fact that you gave us a substandard teacher who prevented us from learning adequately, especially in these times, not to mention the tortures she put me and a friend under. Fudge was feeling lower than low. He was at fault with all these problems. Putting that aside, he refocused where Madame Umbridge had started speaking for the first time in the trial. "Mr. Potter, are you aware that this year provided the most outstanding scores for defense against the dark arts ever, with a number around 33 outstandings, including your very own highest score ever? I believe that is a better indication of my skill as a teacher than your opinion. How many people passed other than those 33? This was greeted by silence. Yes. I believe the number was 12, which only included some Ravenclaw students who achieved outstanding on their theory whilst achieving a dreadful on their practical." Umbridge spoke up again. "What is the point you are trying to express? I can name a majority of those people who achieved an outstanding. Myself, Hermione Granger, Ron Weasley, Susan Bones, Luna Lovegood, Neville Longbottom, Ginny Weasley, Zacharias Smith, Ernie Macmillan, Lavender Brown, Parvati Patil, Padma Patil, Colin Creevy, Dennis Creevy, Hannah Abbott, Cho Chong, Michael Corner, Terry Boot, Katie Bell, Alicia Spinett, Angelina Johnson, Lee Jordan, Fred Weasley, George Weasley, Dean Thomas, Anthony Goldstein, Justin Finch, Fletchley, Blaise Zabini, Draco Malfoy, Pansy Parkinson, Theodore Not, Millicent Bulstrode." "That is correct, Mr. Potter," Madame Bones said with raised eyebrows. "Might we inquire as to where you received this knowledge of results? It might be the fact that I taught the first 28. Blaise Zabini's father is the greatest dueler on Earth barring Dumbledore, Voldemort, Professor Flitwick and Mad-Eye Moody." Everyone flinched. "And that the parents of the others are Death Eaters." Umbridge's childlike voice interrupted him, an incredulous tone in her voice. "You taught them?" She laughed, and some of the Wizengamot laughed with her. Harry merely pointed his wand at the Pensive, and this time they were in the room of requirement where Harry was teaching everyone the basics at the beginning, then a memory of the middle few meetings, and finally the final meeting where they were interrupted at the end. Harry let the memories come, where she asked Snape for Veritaserum, where she talked herself into using the Cruciatus, where she used the blood quills. Other memories washed over them, telling him he is a failure, that he was an attention-seeking child, and that his criminal record would not allow him to become an Auror. Most of the events in the Department of Mysteries came next, and Umbridge was looking pale with worry. The thoughts were jumbled, and this could not be faked, so it was with fury written on their faces that they dismissed all charges. Apology upon apology from everyone who had not believed him overwhelmed him, and he felt angry enough to hit someone. Half an hour when the commotion had died down, Madame Bones turned back to Harry. "Mr. Potter, first of all, let me apologize on behalf of the Ministry, and second, I have just sent for a pardon for Mr. Black. Finally, you will receive the staff of Merlin. It was given to those who regularly fight evil. Therefore, it is your responsibility that you do not use it for the wrong purposes. Mr. Black will be receiving an Order of Merlin First Class, and reparations will be paid into your vaults of the sum of 360 million galleons. It is advisable that you summon a Black family meeting and discuss with them the distribution of this amount." Harry groaned inwardly. He would not give them shit, let alone some money. He thought about how angry he had been when he found out that Lucius Malfoy had been freed under the pretense that he had been under the Imperius. She said something that was lost on Harry, and then he turned to see the spokesperson for the Wizengamot. "We as the judicial branch of the government feel that we have no choice but to release Mr. Potter of his charges. Further, we insist Mr. Potter be paid additional reparations for his personal suffering." On that note, Ms. Umbridge is to be punished under the consequences of torture for underage wizards. The choice is yours, Mr. Potter. The Dementor's kiss. Everyone gasped. Mr. Potter, that is a very harsh punishment. I beg of you to reconsider. Harry retorted angrily. Did you or did you not see where she admitted the fact that she said Dementors on me and my cousin? Madam Bones nodded dumbly. I do not take kindly to attempts on my life. All who oppose me will either die or wish they had. This is a war, one have no time for niceties. You people are useless. In 5 years in the wizarding world there has always been an attempt on my life and I have had to stop it by myself. Now it is no longer sensible to show mercy. Therefore, I repeat, she will be receiving the Dementor's kiss. Right now. Fudge closed his eyes and so did many of the other members of the Wizengamot, trying to drown out Umbridge's pitiful screams. Shakily, Fudge ordered the Dementors in. The room grew cold but Harry did not notice it, his warming charm working quite well. Madam Bones shuddered as she heard a high-pitched scream, then a thud that indicated it had been administered. She quickly ended the hearing and practically fled the courtroom, but she saw the expression on the boy's face. It was the same face Albus Dumbledore wore in 1945, battle-weary and hanging on with all he could muster. She did not blame the boy, but she regretted those things ever happened because however foul Umbridge was, they had been friends since the wars against the few Grindelwald supporters that put up a resistance. Back at Hogwarts in the headmaster's office, the staffs were in attendance and were informed of the trial. They were sitting there horrified at the news. They had not liked Umbridge, but they did not know Harry could be so cruel. Harry tumbled in afterwards through the fireplace to inform both the staff and Snape particularly that their duel would take place in the evening. Snape snorted, "This will be short and sweet." Harry merely smirked. "What makes you think I'll beat you quickly? I need to release some stress, Professor. As Cousin Diddykin's imitation of wrestlers go, I'ma put yaw in a whirl of hurt." Then he walked out without seeing a furious Snape and horrified staff. Harry decided to use medium-level spells like the Protega Maximus, as it would not arouse as much suspicion as advanced level, higher level or distinction level spells. Snape was advanced, but Harry would use some of Dumbledore's style mixed in with some of Flitwick's style. Checking his watch, he decided to dress up in those Gryffindor robes he had found inside the trunk. They were magnificent. Golden with a huge phoenix across the back looking defiant. The trim was a blaring red, as were the sash across the waist, collar, and the phoenix itself. It looked intimidating. He reminded himself to go down into the chamber and harvest the basilisk remains for potions, ingredients and armor. Checking himself in the mirror first, he made his way down to the great hall where a long platform similar to his second year one but considerably wider was surrounded by all the students with Snape standing on top of it. Many people gasped when Harry walked in, the magnificent robes shining golden in the light. Dumbledore gave a speech about how the winner would get 1,000 galleons and one request would be granted to him. Finally, he finished and McGonagall read out the rules. Finally, they bowed to each other and began. Stupefy. Expelliarmus. Protega. Filipendo. Protega. Harry blocked and dodged, intent on tiring out Snape before beating him. Then he remembered the taunting Snape had done to him, to Sirius, the false accusations he made against his father, and how Dumbledore always took his word over others. He snapped, or so everyone thought. He started throwing charms, which turned Snape's clothes, pink, his hair purple and his shoes into high heels. In between, he blocked the spells, which were coming faster and faster at him. He glanced at the clock. Merlin, 20 minutes had gone. It felt more like 2 minutes. Obliterate. This is a highly powerful banishing charm which came from Snape, and Harry deliberately put up a Protega Maximus shield even though it would break. It lessened the impact on him. The force of the spell still knocked him to the ground. Finally Harry had enough. He started using every curse in the Hogwarts curriculum and Snape started to do the same. They carried on dueling faster and faster. Harry had to resist the urge to unleash the more powerful spells whilst Snape had no qualms about it. Having an idea, he summoned Snape towards him, then conjured up a wall into which Snape went headfirst. Snape looked ridiculous, and with his head stuck in the wall it just served to make the hall laugh harder. Harry did not see a furious McGonagall striding down the hall until it was too late. "Mr. Potter!" she screeched shrilly. "This will be 100 points from Gryffindor. How dare you do something so ill-mannered? But we were dueling, it's allowed." "Silence, Mr. Potter. It seems as if you do not care for points. Your ban on Quidditch will still stand, although your broom will be returned." You will not be allowed to fly unless your head of house gives you permission." A majority of the hall gaped at her in shock, whilst Harry himself looked at her in silence. Slowly he raised his wand and summoned his firebolt and his belongings from his dormitory. Packing all of his things into the trunk, he ignored a bewildered McGonagall and turned to Dumbledore. "Professor, may I have my prize?" Dumbledore tossed him the bag of galleons, upon which he summoned Dobby. A crack later he appeared. "Dobby, can you go give this to Fred and George? It's for expansion of their shop." "Yes, Master Harry Potter, sir." "Right away, Master Harry Potter, sir." And he disappeared with another crack. "Harry, what is your request?" Casting one sad look at McGonagall, he spoke up. "If Professor Flitwick has no objections, I wish to be resorted to Ravenclaw." Silence for a few moments, then Flitwick squeaked, "It would be an honor, Mr. Potter." All the Ravenclaws cheered, and Dumbledore, looking stricken, had no choice. "Very well, Mr. Potter, your wish will be granted. You may move to Ravenclaw." Harry left the hall accompanied by a jubilant Ravenclaw house. On the way, Blaise Zabini walked up to him and smirked. "Potter, would you care to accompany me to Hogsmeade in 2 weeks' time?" Surprised, all he could do was nod and smile weakly. Blaise sat on her own in the library. She had sneaked out to watch the trial and had been horrified yet awestruck. He was not arrogant, he was just that damn good. She did not know why she had asked him out, but she would make the most of it. She remembered when she saw him in the first year, looking scared with those lovely green eyes. He had ignored Draco Malfoy's offer, sticking with Weasley. He had looked so menacing it was worthy of a Slytherin. She sighed again as Madame Pants looked at her, clearly disgruntled. "Harry Potter, who are you really?" When a Black family meeting is called, all surviving members of the Black family and their spouses must be in attendance. Any children born of these members must also attend the meeting. A meeting can only be called if there are monetary assets or other assets which require distribution. To disown or reinstate members to the family, Harry grinned happily and underlined this point. To summon family members for a blood feud, the head may decide in these points only. His decision is final. During a meeting, all hostilities will be ceased and all meeting must take place at Black Manor. Harry sat there in the throne room of Black Castle, which was literally black. The bricks were black, the horses were black, and the carriage was black. The gates were black, the hounds were black, and there were black birds, which looked like ravens circling outside the window. He impatiently flicked through the letters he had sent earlier, the copies required to be placed within the Black family history book. "Bellatrix Lestrange, you have been summoned to a Black family meeting. Take this portkey at 12 noon, it will bring you here. You are required to bring your husband and any children you may have. Master Black, head of the Black family, Andromeda Tonks. You have been summoned to a Black family meeting. Take this portkey at 12 noon, it will bring you here. You are required to bring your husband and any children you may have. We have some issues to discuss. Master Black, head of the Black family, Narcissa Malfoy. You have been summoned to a Black family meeting. Take this portkey at 12 noon, it will bring you here. You are required to bring your husband and any children you may have. Master Black, head of the Black family, Frederick Zabini. You have been summoned to a Black family meeting. Take this portkey at 12 noon, it will bring you here. You are required to bring your wife and any children you may have. We have some issues to discuss. Master Black, head of the Black family, imagining the surprise on their faces when he removed his hood to reveal Harry Potter, he sat in anticipation of that time. However, what he was not looking forward to was when the attendants greeted him by kissing him on the hem of his robes. It was too Voldemort-like. Unfortunately, it was a law he could not change without the permission of the previous master, because Sirius was no longer there. Sitting on an actual throne was wonderful and horrible. Wonderful because it was so comfortable, but horrible because he felt arrogant. A muffled thud followed by several more signaled the arrival of everyone. He blushed underneath his hood, unseen by the members. This was because of the cleavage from Tonks and Blaise that was quite visible when they bowed down. He suppressed the hate for Lucius, Draco and Bellatrix, remembering a TV program he had sneaked out to watch. Flashback: the old man wearing a peace sign on his t-shirt had tears in his eyes at a murder in Chechnya. Remember, those of you who are watching, a majority those religions, those beliefs which you hold dear are there to bring peace. No matter what evil those so-called believers do, the belief or morals for those of you who do not believe in a higher being is the same. The message is always the same. Hatred is the mother of evil. Those who transgress will ultimately fall. It is the cycle of life. Hatred breeds evil. It is a disease to the heart. Yet some people deserve to die. Yes, some people will always be evil, but to take an innocent life? That is to transgress and to become the monster you fight. Hate the actions, not the person, as Friedrich Nietzsche once said. Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he doesn't become a monster, and if you gaze too long into the abyss gazes back into you. End flashback. Everyone silently sat down. Blaise nervously took the seat next to Harry, whilst the Muggle Ted Tonks sat between his wife and daughter, looking out of place in his jeans and Muggle t-shirt. Mr. and Mrs. Zabini looked on in curiosity. They had been disowned before Sirius' birth 3 generations ago, and they were not to be included in such meetings. Finally Harry spoke, his changed voice unrecognizable to the audience. First order of business. I, Harry James Potter, Black Master of our family, do hereby reinstate the Zabini family as members of the prestigious Black family. I, Harry James Potter Black Master, also welcome Andromeda Black Tonks back into our family. Blaise was stunned. Potter? He was the head of the Black family? Merlin. Narcissa smirked. She had known it from the start. Who else would inherit the throne from Sirius? On one side the Zabinis and Tonks, bar Ted, were pleasantly surprised once they had overcome the shock. On the other side all barring Narcissa were pale with shock, Bellatrix especially. Harry stood up and held out his hand, upon which the Zabini family and Tonks family kissed it and greeted him as their head. Blaise's kiss lingered for longer than necessary, and Harry smirked to cover the fact that he was flustered inside. Harry continued once everyone was seated once again. To both the Zabini and Tonks families I bequeath 20 million galleons to be used in accordance to their own wishes. To the rest of you, you must swear on Merlin's oath that you will serve the light or risk expulsion from our family. A. N. Allen. This is what I wished to do, before I gave them some money. They utterly refused. Although his Legilimens picked up some doubt from Narcissa, he decided to keep them within the family for now, or else risk the death of the Malfoy matriarch. Very well, for each of you I bequeath a single canute and wish you a good journey. Farewell. Their faces were filled with fury, but familiar with the pain they would feel if they began hostilities towards the head through the ancient magical wards. They recognized the dismissal. Collecting a canute each from Harry, they kissed the hem of his robes and portkeyed away. The rest of the occupants of the room sat there barely hiding their amusement as Harry pointed his wand at the hem of his robes and muttered, "Scourgify." He sat down and made an effort to get the people to relax. "At ease, my friends, would you care to join me in this feast?" "Of course, my lord, we would be honored. Come now, none of that bullshit. Talk freely, and yes, you can laugh." Everyone chuckled and the atmosphere lightened. "So what is the latest news from everybody? Introduce yourselves. I have a feeling that our family is going to be pretty close during the second rise of Voldemort." Everyone flinched bar Tonks' father. After an hour of feasting and general chatting, Tonks had just left but her parents had stayed. He continued, "There is another reason I called you here, Mr. Zabini. First I will show you what I face and why I am in need of your help. Please call me Fred or Frederick, Harry." "Very well, Fred." He pulled out his Pensive. Again, he thanked Remus for giving it to him. It had come into great use. He drew out the memory of the duel between Dumbledore and Voldemort, using the life-size view feature. When the memory had finished, everyone's eyes had glazed over and Fred looked towards Harry in awe. "That is the greatest duel I have ever seen, Harry. I believe you wish me to train you in dueling skill." "Very well, Harry, however I must stress that both the Dark Lord and Dumbledore are way out of my league. Fred, once I have mastered dueling with you, I will seek help from Alistair Moody, and if Professor Flitwick agrees with him as well. Your skill lies in transfiguration dueling, does it not?" Fred nodded. "Alistair Moody is a brutal dueler in which he excels even greater than Riddle or Dumbledore. Finally, the Master Charms dueler Professor Flitwick is the best in that field. If I can become proficient in all styles of dueling, then I may have a chance the next time I face the bastard." Fred nodded again appreciatively, but he still had some doubts. "I have heard that you have some difficulties with the simpler spells but can do difficult spells like the Patronus without batting an eyelid." Harry nodded back, "Yes, which was true until this past summer when I read a book by Merlin himself, What is Magic?" Fred grinned and his eyes lit up. "I see, I was going to recommend to you." They discussed tactics until Blaise spoke up. "Harry, why did you request to resorting to Ravenclaw? Where else can I study without raising eyebrows and making Dumbledore suspicious? Moreover, McGonagall has been ordered by Dumbledore to side with anyone else against me, so I have to go to the headmaster to discuss things with him willingly. However, I have had wish to. Yes, I was wrong in the duel with Snape, but however distasteful and dishonorable my actions were, she had no right to punish me. I have a feeling though that Dumbledore wishes me to stay out of any form of danger. I guess this is good night. Using his most pompous voice, you may leave. I, your modest superior, give you permission to leave my honorable presence. Everyone chuckled. Soon it was time to depart. None of this leaves this room, okay? Not even to Tonks. Her loyalty is to Dumbledore first. Everyone nodded, wondering how they could have ever thought that he was Dumbledore's pawn. Several days later at Hogwarts, Harry stood in the Ravenclaw common room, reading a book and absently practicing the spells on a dummy. Every other member of the house sat there watching him cast spell upon spell on the first try. He was still frustrated though. It would take him at least until the end of the 7th year to complete his training and truly overtake Voldemort in matters of knowledge and skill. It was a long road, but he knew that if he wanted to live where there were no Death Eaters, just him, his family, and remaining friends, then it was the right way. Finally, finishing the book, he put it down and turned to a cute first-year girl with doe-like eyes, all innocent. Mr. Potter, sir. Could you help me with an assignment, please? Harry grinned. No? The girl looked downhearted and he continued. Mr. Potter will not help you. Harry will though. I'm your housemate, so just call me Harry, okay, sweetie? The girl's face lit up and she skipped to her desk. All in all, Harry was happy in Ravenclaw apart from when Luna was spying on him. He had learnt quite a lot about wizarding customs and other necessities for the head of one family, even more so for a head of two. Soon after he returned to his dorm to get ready for his classes, he was a little irritated that the Ravenclaws all woke up at 7 to get ready and read up on notes. He skipped breakfast along with some other Ravenclaws to fly. He took the little girl Anne-Marie with him as first years were not allowed brooms. When he arrived at class, his adrenaline had yet to subside and he sat down in nodding at a still beaming Flitwick. The little man had not stopped smiling since Harry had joined his house. He even went as far as to put Harry in the upcoming trials for the Quidditch team. Cho had been so jealous that she refused to talk to him, saying that his fame was the cause of his entrance. Harry merely looked at her and told her in no uncertain terms that he could beat her easily. If he wanted, this was proven when they had gone head-to-head with a snitch. 10 out of 10 victories later, Cho had stormed off the grounds. When he announced that he would try out for Chaser, she had looked sheepish and apologetic, but since then Harry had spoken minimally to her. Her popularity in their house waned and she held him responsible. Harry had done well to put up with Luna because she had not actually done anything to warrant Harry's wrath. Nor had Neville or Ginny, so he had to keep it cool with them so as not to raise suspicion. Snapping back to attention, he listened to Flitwick and sighed in disappointment as the little man chatted about the Patronus charm. Once Harry demonstrated it, he set everyone else to task and dragged Harry to his cupboard. Harry, I am going to teach you a charm that only 10 wizards in the world can do. It's the Destructovus Patronum charm. This spell actually destroys Dementors. It took me 3 years to master it, but I expect you will do it within 3 months. The reason I took so long was because my original Patronus was pitiful compared to yours. It could maybe drive away 2 or 3 Dementors at most. The wand movement is the same, but you must focus on someone else's undying love for you. I know this may be difficult for you, but think about the night when your parents died. They died so you could live, and it is a powerful bond. One last thing, Mr. Potter. This is a highly illegal spell, so you must keep this between us and practice in secret. Is this understood? Delighted, Harry nodded and headed back out to help some people with their practice. Phileas Flitwick sighed as he watched the boy. He had pleaded with Minerva to allow the boy onto the Quidditch team, and she had agreed reluctantly. Whatever had possessed her to punish him for Severus' humiliation? He would never know. Yes, the boy had done something dishonorable in the duel, but the potion's master had done the same for the first 5 years. Sometimes the boy's eyes would light up with happiness, as they had done when most of the Gryffindors did not blame him for changing house. Sometimes they would harden, emotionless when he was around Severus or Albus, and sometimes his inner pain would show in the emerald pools. The death of Sirius Black must have affected him greatly. He watched the boy. Yes, a boy, for his eyes were sparkling as the students joked around, only to take on a guarded expression when he was leaving the classroom. Yes, Phileas Flitwick was one of the few who were familiar with both the boy and the man in Harry Potter. He knew what Voldemort was doing to Harry. He was killing the child slowly by leeching out his happiness. This is what the Second War boiled down to. Yes, he knew the Harry must have been destined to defeat Voldemort simply because there was a prophecy about him and the fact that the Dark Lord found him a threat. He would teach the boy, no matter what people said. He would teach the boy to duel. Now all he had to do was to make the boy inside him stronger, for his innocence may have been taken from him, but the death of the child would not bode well for future generations. Albus had condemned him to a horrible childhood. For one child it was too late, oh yes. Tom Riddle was beyond redemption at this time in his life. Harry would not go dark, but he would become a dementor of sorts, sucking what little happiness he could find. Damn you, Albus. You may be the greatest wizard alive, but you have no place dealing with children personally. He hoped beyond hope that someone would maintain Harry Potter's sanity, for he had known Lily Potter, the greatest charms mistress to ever grace Hogwarts, and he owed her a life debt. They say love cannot be defeated, yet all love has brought for him is pain. He turned back to see his new class staring at him strangely, and he sighed again. Blaise Zabini sat hidden by a disillusionment charm, inside the room of requirement, watching a topless Harry Potter dance and slash through the air with two swords. His balance was amazing, especially considering he had two differently weighted blades in his hands. In his left was a broadsword, heavy and clumsy, yet he used it with ease. In his right was a small rapier with which he peppered the dummy by scratching it above the eyebrows, a gesture which irritated it immensely. What she enjoyed most, though, was his sleek yet powerful body moving gracefully through each move. Harry grinned as he saw Blaise ogling his body and almost drooling, so he decided to tempt her more. Slowly he stretched and posed repeatedly, then he removed his trousers, making it seem as if he was going to strip. Suddenly he dived across and grabbed her in his arms, tickling her sides. She squealed loudly and begged him to stop. "Now, we won't be having no more peeping sessions now, will we?" asked Harry, a playful smile slipping onto his face. "No, no," she giggled again, and Harry got off her and slipped back into his clothes. "How did you see me, Potter?" "I did not see you. I heard your breathing," he lied. It would not do well for her to find out about the charms on his glasses until he was sure he could trust her. They chatted aimlessly for a little while, and she massaged him when he groaned about stiff shoulders, etc. Soon, though, it was time for the last lesson of the day for both of them, Transfiguration. Harry did not have a good time ever since his transfer. Blaise silently thought about what Harry had done. He had selected only charms, Transfiguration and Defense against the Dark Arts as the main courses. The other two were Care of Magical Creatures and Herbology, both of which he excelled in. She remembered when Dumbledore had given her the award for the second best student in the year. Potter had not been invited, yet he had gotten outstanding for everything barring history and astronomy. He was one of the few who had made the grade for potions. It was the same as hers, but she guessed her head of house had something to do with not mentioning it earlier. He had rivaled Professor Snape's score, which was no mean feat. She remembered a time where her father told her that Professor Snape had taken his exam after several bouts of cruciatus, and since then she had held respect for the man. Potter, well, he said he respected his abilities, but the man was a bastard through and through. She could accept that. Every time she thought she had him figured out, Blaise found out something new about him. She asked the sky for the third night in a row, "Harry Potter, who or what the hell are you?" Harry sat on his bed, seething. Flashback: Dumbledore called Harry into his office. Not knowing what the old coot wanted, he went in unaware of the outrage he was going to face. Snape was seated on another chair in the room, and he smirked at Harry when he walked in. "Hello, Harry. Would you like a lemon drop?" Harry took one and popped it into his mouth. He let the sour rush move around his mouth and waited for the old man to get to the point. "Harry, I am afraid that I cannot allow you to visit Hogsmeade today. The security risk is just too great." "No, Professor, I am going. I have been looking forward to this day for weeks. You cannot hold me back now." Dumbledore frowned and Snape got his view in. "Potter, how extraordinarily like your father you are, and arrogant. You will have a detention with me today, scrubbing cauldrons and vials free of potion residue." Harry looked on in shock as Dumbledore nodded, even though there was no good reason to give him a detention. "I am sorry, Harry. Unless you promise me that you will not go to Hogsmeade, I will have to enforce this detention. Please do not force my hand, my boy." Harry sat there and then reluctantly promised the old man. On his way out of the office, he came across Blaise and related to her events of previous moments. To her credit, She had not complained, but she had stunned him by sticking her tongue in his mouth and rolling it around. Harry had watched her exit, his eyes focused on her swaying hips. End flashback. On impulse, Harry put on his cloak and headed down to the girls' bathroom. Upon reaching it, he walked over to the relevant sink, hissed the password, and descended into the Chamber of Secrets. This time, he shrunk the basilisk carcass to the size of a small worm and put it into a small matchbox he had conjured. He carried on walking until he went past from where the basilisk had entered years ago. Just before he did, he noticed the fang he had used to destroy the diary. He cast a shrinking spell on it as well as a charm so that the venom would not leak onto his clothes and put it into his pocket. He proceeded to search through the dead skin and finally found one of the things he was looking for. He found an entrance to another chamber. This place was where Tom Riddle had studied. Checking his watch, he found he had only 10 minutes until everyone returned from Hogsmeade. Quickly looking through some papers on the desk, he grinned. The first was a set of forms to apply for an early testing on newts and a second set, which made his face light up considerably. He looked at the huge pile of paper, focusing on the front page of each joined set. Tom Marvolo Riddle, Year 6 to 7 Newt Transfiguration Notes. Tom Marvolo Riddle, Year 6 to 7 Newt Charms Notes. Tom Marvolo Riddle, Year 6 to 7 Newt Defense Against the Dark Arts Notes. Tom Marvolo Riddle, Year 6 to 7 Newt Potions Notes. Tom Marvolo Riddle, Year 6 to 7 Newt Care of Magical Creatures Notes. Tom Marvolo Riddle, Year 6 to 7 Newt Herbology Notes. Harry grinned again, realized the time, took the papers, the egg, and ran back the way he came. All in the space of a minute, he was fleeing down a corridor until he stopped abruptly as Flitwick was watching him. "Hello, Mr. Potter. I heard from Severus that you were not allowed to leave the school grounds. All the staff have been looking for you." "I did not leave school grounds, Professor. I was merely searching for my notes." He opened up the charms notes and Flitwick looked highly impressed. "Mr. Potter, I once told Albus that you would do great things. It seems you are fulfilling the great things we are expecting from you. Go, you may return to your dormitory. I will explain to the rest of the staff where you were." "Thanks, sir, for everything. I mean Quidditch as well. I need to ask you for one more thing, but this can't be given out to other than the two of us." Flitwick nodded. "Would you teach me charms dueling, sir?" he asked hopefully. "I thought you would never ask, Mr. Potter. We will begin at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. Is that agreeable to you?" Harry nodded. Beaming at the little man, he went back to his dorm, quite happier than he was in the morning. Hours later, he was summoned to the headmaster's office because the minister had arrived. He walked in and nodded at all the staff, then turned where there was a huge gathering of Aurors and other ministry officials. The headmaster stood up and began to speak. "We have been gathered here today, in an effort to unite our efforts in the war against the Dark Lord Voldemort." The room collectively flinched. "In these dark times we must work together to achieve a victory for the light side. I welcome you all to the Order of the Phoenix." Harry was quite shocked, but then he realized a majority of the original order was not there. Therefore, his induction was merely using his reputation to bolster the amount of members whilst keeping them ignorant of the more important facts. Whilst he was thinking, the minister had walked up to him and begun to apologize profusely. Harry half listened to him until everyone but him had been inducted. He knew they were milking his reputation for all they could, so he did not go to Dumbledore to be inducted. Everyone was focused on him, but he studiously ignored them, choosing instead to chatter away to the minister about current news. Dumbledore coughed politely to gain his attention, but he carried on as if he had not even heard it. Dumbledore spoke loudly. "Harry, do you not wish to join the Order of the Phoenix?" "No." There was total silence. "I thought you would happily take part in any defense against the Dark Arts Group. What has changed your mind?" "I merely wish to obtain some agreements from the minister, and then I'll join the group." The minister spoke up. Beaming, he looked ready to offer anything to Harry. "What agreements, Harry?" "I wish to have the license to kill or torture any with the dark mark. In other words, I want to be allowed to use any spell or potion I wish without reprimand." The minister gaped before agreeing reluctantly. He would not anger the boy who lived in front of this many witnesses. "I also wish to be allowed to take my newts at the end of this year." The minister nodded again, slightly happier with this request. "I wish to be granted adult rights." The minister agreed again, this time relieved that the requests were getting easier and easier to grant. He watched as Harry narrowed his eyes at Dumbledore and locked gazes. The boy spoke through clenched teeth. "I wish to be emancipated in the magical world." This caused Snape and McGonagall to protest. Dumbledore looked pale with shock and had to seat himself. McGonagall's voice cut through all the noise, causing everyone else to calm down and listen. "Mr. Potter, you do not possess the maturity to be allowed such freedom. You have shown time and time again that you are reckless." "Well, if we were to believe that, then you can thank my recklessness for saving the school 4 times in 5 years." That shut her up. She merely huffed and sat back down. Snape, ever the one for a fight, especially with a Potter, spoke up. "You are too arrogant, Potter. You have been offered something which is of high honor, and you do not accept it graciously but wish to do so on your own terms. Snape, for once in your life, shut the fuck up. You are an insignificant pawn in this war. You are expendable, and I am not. I know the prophecy you do not. I am Voldemort's equal in this war. You are just an insignificant squib in comparison. Do not presume to judge me as you have judged others. I am your only hope. Dumbledore has little chance at beating him, whilst my chance is easier, just waiting for me to train and put it into use. I do not have time to waste on petty arguments with a boy in a man's body who cannot get over the fact that other people made him pay for the evil bastard he was back then. Do not look at me with surprise. I know the things you did. I have seen it in my father's Pensive." Harry had seen one memory but could not stand to see his parents, what he had lost, so he had fled the memory storage device. "Yes, calling my, then, recently deceased grandmother a muggle-loving whore gave my father ample reason for humiliating you. How convenient was it that you start the memory from where my father begins to retaliate? Now sit down and keep your mouth shut. This is for the big boys and you have no place in this." He then turned back to the minister, ignoring a shell-shocked audience and staff. "I agree to all those terms. I will flow them now." 15 minutes later, Harry was inducted into the Order of the Phoenix. He spoke again, before everyone could leave. "Can those who consider themselves excellent duelers line up onto the near side?" Only 7 people lined up near Harry. He groaned inwardly. How many have dueled Death Eaters and have performed significant roles? Only 1 remained. All the other Aurors were involved in minor skirmishes. Harry decided to duel the one left to determine his worth. "Would you help me in a demonstration duel, so when we train the rest they know what we expect of them?" The Auror nodded, and a few expansion charms later, they were facing each other. Dumbledore as the referee signaled the beginning and they were away. Stupefy. Protega. Reducto Maximus. Titan Protega. The Auror, Max Devon, ducked as his own spell came at him faster than he had fired. He fired another 3 Reducto spells only to watch Harry dance away and levitate himself over the others. Dumbledore watched the display of brutal dueling, getting faster and more furious as time went on. He was impressed. Highly impressed at the spells Harry was performing. He watched Harry use spells of considerable power and block spells of greater power. The Auror was sweating now, 15 minutes into the duel. So was Harry to a lesser degree. He watched as Harry gracefully danced out of the way of a petrification hex. Annihilatum vis. Harry was getting quite tired by the 20th minute of the duel. This person was good, so he had to end it quickly. Remembering that he had to keep to medium-level power spells, he just changed tactics. He turned some nearby chairs into wolves and ordered them to attack him. This proved to be the Auror's undoing as he tripped over one and the other wolf bit his wand arm, causing him to drop it. Harry was quite pleased with the duel and asked the man to lead the training for the rest of the recruits. He divided the groups into 3. Those who specialized in transfiguration, where they learned transfiguration dueling. Dumbledore was a master, so he and McGonagall would take alternate classes. Professor Flitwick and Remus would teach the charms group, using a majority of the hexes and curses used in defense lessons. Finally, there would be all-out dueling, brutal spell for spell dueling, and Max would teach that group. Any people who did not fit into these groups were sent either with Professor Snape into potions or Madame Pomfrey in the hospital wing. This group would meet every other night to train. Hopefully they would be quite powerful as a unit when they met up. An hour later, Harry was walking past the dungeons when he overheard Dumbledore speaking to Snape. Listening in closely, he heard, Amiability Potion, Rose Memory Potion and Imperious Potion. He wondered what the old man was up to, and he found out. He really did not like the answers. Instruct the Muggles to use the first 2 on him. If he is still insistent on leaving them, then they must give him the final potion. But, I think the combination of potions will leave him in a coma for 2 weeks. We will have to leave him like that if it comes to that. It will be ample time for the—" He did not hear the rest of the conversation as someone was walking down towards him. He left the area and returned to his dormitory deep in thought. Tonight he would research each potion and try to find out their uses, i.e. how to counter them just in case. Harry James Potter Black sat there thinking to himself. Is there such a thing as love? I have loved and been hurt so much times, the only thing I can associate with it is pain. I loved my parents, they died, and I loved Sirius, he died. I loved Dumbledore and he betrayed me, and I loved my friends who betrayed me. I loved Mrs. Weasley as I did my own mother, and she betrayed me. Why should I love when it brings so much pain? He sighed and looked down to the Pensive in his hands. Harry felt an awkward scratch on the side of his palms. Feeling the bottom, he withdrew a letter that was concealed within. This was a letter from his father. It filled him with so much hope, yet so much dread. Taking a deep breath, he opened it and read. To the light of our lives, Harry James Potter, 19 years in the past. James Potter sat in divination, asking himself and Sirius about love. He wondered whether he loved Lily or not. He thought about her night and day. Sighing deeply, he looked into the crystal ball and felt a dizzying sensation. He looked in and to his shock, saw himself, with green eyes, sitting alone on his bed weeping softly, hidden by the hangings. He looked closer and he realized. It's my baby boy. The image spoke, and James reeled back in shock. This was not normal. You were not supposed to hear things in crystal ball visions. The boy was thinking aloud, and he listened with growing sadness as his baby boy had tears streaming down his face. I have loved and been hurt so much times, the only thing I can associate with it is pain. I loved my parents, they died, and I loved Sirius, he died. I loved Dumbledore and he betrayed me, and I loved my friends who betrayed me. I loved Mrs. Weasley as I did my own mother, and she betrayed me. Why should I love when it brings so much pain? He was pulled out of his vision abruptly, and Viola's concerned face came into focus. He got up, muttering that he had blacked out and that he needed to visit the hospital wing. Sirius escorted him down to the hospital wing, where he took a pepper-up potion and dragged Sirius to his room. Sirius, we need to get a couple of things from Hogsmeade, let's go. Ever the one to break rules without questioning, he left with him. An hour later the two marauders returned. Sirius was shell-shocked. Was James going to do it? He could not believe it. Merlin, it was unbelievable. It occupied both their minds until that evening. James entered the common room to find Lily and her three mates, Anna, Arabella and Lena, studying for their charms exam due to be taken the following week. She sighed as he walked towards her, and told him she couldn't spend much time with him because she needed to study. Lily Flower, I promise this won't take more than 15 minutes. It's very important to me. His serious face convinced her, and she put her books to one side. She moved over so he could sit next to her, but he did not sit. Remus and Peter walked in behind him with lots of food from the kitchen, but respectfully stayed silent in the background whilst looking on curiously. James dropped onto one knee and took her hand. Lily Marie Evans, will you marry me? He opened up a small box clearly showing the soul ring inside. The girls shrieked in happiness whilst Lily herself looked at him with tearful eyes. James, are you sure? I could not bear it if you were to leave me. Are you ready for this commitment? He looked at her as if she was crazy and spoke to dispel her doubts. His tears left his eyes, and he pulled her so close that every time he spoke his lips encountered hers. Lily Flower, did you hear about me collapsing in divination? She nodded, slightly confused as how this would show if he meant it. I was asking myself if I loved you, if my thinking of you as often as my heartbeat continued meant that you were my life, my love. Then I looked into the crystal ball and saw the future, and it showed me that, yes, I did love you. Do you know what I saw? I saw an image of myself, near perfect, but he was slightly taller. But do you know what the most wonderful thing about it was? She shook her head, her tears following James' unusual show of emotion. The others in the background watched, their own tears trickling down their faces. He had, his voice shook, the most beautiful green eyes in the world. Lily Flower, I saw our baby boy, and it told me that you were the one for me. My beginning, my end, and everything in between. So, Lily Marie Evans, will you marry me? Her tears dropped onto his face and she pushed him away slightly. He looked heartbroken until she held out her hand. Then his eyes lit up and he placed the ring on her finger, kissing it, and muttered the words he had read once when he was a child. Me aeternus aeternus amor. Sealing the bond, a small part of his soul went into the ring. In essence, he submitted a part of himself to display perfect loyalty to her. 2 days later, they wrote a letter and started a collection of the good memories they had at Hogwarts from Sirius, Remus, himself, and Lily. 3 before they died, James sent the Pensive to their family vault, along with other rare Potter family books that their child would require in the future due to the damned prophecy. Present day, to the light of our lives, Harry James Potter. If you are reading this, then we are most likely dead, as is Sirius. This Pensive contains all the good times we had at Hogwarts and all the pranks we pulled. In our vault, you will find rare books containing Lord Gryffindor's personal texts, even the ones he had acquired from Merlin. I trust you will not abuse this honor. That is all we wished to say to the future savior of the wizarding world. Now, this is to our love, our hope, and our happiness. Yes, baby prongs, this is your father and mother is here with me. We wish to tell you something you have undoubtedly been ignorant of, if what I fear has come to pass and you have been let down by many people. Love is wonderful, yes, love hurts, and yes, it tears at every fiber of your being when a loved one dies. However, you have to realize that without love, we are Voldemort. Without love there is no hate. There are no morals, no peace, you must love, or you should not exist for you are blight on humanity. Every person has something they love, Voldemort does not. He craves power therefore it rules him. You crave love and therefore you are ruled by love. We cannot express to you how much we love you. In the 2 rings that belong to your mother and I reside a piece of our souls and our love for each other and you. Wear the rings on a chain around your neck so that wherever you go, whatever you do, you will know that we love you and will continue to do so till hell freezes over. To our baby, we love you and will love you. Remember, love hurts, but it heals and it brings hope. No man should despair of love, for love is all that there is good in the world. James and Lily Potter me aeternus aeternus amor. Harry extracted the rings he had found and kissed them reverently, and held them to his heart. Mum and Dad, I love you. Sirius, I love you, and I will honor your memories. Wait for me please, when death comes to me. I would not like to travel alone as I have done for much of my life. Wait for me so that I can finally find peace in death, peace, which I was denied in life. Blaise Zabini crept away from the boys' dormitories, her face moist with tears. It was he. She knew that now, her grandmother had sung a poem whilst in a trance to her before she had passed away. Yours is a heart of gold, my sweet, soon the King of Kings you'll meet. He will be a warrior, with the sharpest of minds covering what he is, sweet, gentle, and kind. Hiding all the pain he feels at thy feet shall he kneel. His words will cause many jeers and his love will be the one to witness his tears. The departed shall give him their souls, he'll find peace once he has fulfilled his role. He was her love, but he had a war going on, therefore she would meet with him in secret until the war was over. Harry still sat there sobbing for hours. No one came in as everyone was watching the Quidditch practice, and he had already made the team and had requested a break. The captain had reluctantly agreed as he had seen the state Harry was in. They had a game in 3 days, so he wanted his chasers in top form and fitness. Harry collected himself, took out his firebolt, and headed out to the Quidditch pitch, determined to live his life the best possible way. Roger, the captain and head boy, added him in without asking him as he saw the distressed state he was in. Harry got up into the air and did a few laps of the pitch at full speed, letting the cool wind flow through his hair. It gave him freedom, no responsibilities, no expectations, just pure freedom. He moved to his place and practice started. Every time Harry got the quaffle, he slammed it through the hoops, decimating the defense the reserve team had up. Cho looked for the snitch, but it was pointless. Harry had scored at least 12 in half an hour, with the other chasers scoring the remaining 7. They continued, the stands watching on with awe as he put in any chance he got. Pausing for a moment, he kissed the rings again and continued in his unrelenting assault on the hoops. Harry did not possess much of a throwing arm, but he was unrivaled in flight, too fast and too good. He got into awkward positions, switched the quaffle, and did outrageous passes, which left the team giddy with delight. Yes, they were in with a shot at winning, and the Gryffindors would be in for a shock. Later that night, Harry created the countermeasure for the Rose Memory Potion and drank it. He was unprepared for the memories, which assaulted him, Vernon beating him. Petunia slapping him so hard that he fell over unconscious, and both of them burning some of the photos of his mother that she had kept. Other memories continually battered his brain: despair, hurt, and anger. The potion was meant to make the subject remember better memories only. That's why he did not consider them to have ever physically abused him, but now the memories were back. Harry's anger rose. This meant he had taken that potion before. The Dursleys had drugged his food so that he would not throw his anger on them. He remembered the new TV and videos that the Dursleys had watched together, and his anger erupted when he realized what must have happened. Dumbledore must have paid them to keep him there and drug him. Leaving his dormitory, he ran to the room of requirement, unleashing his hate upon the objects the room had provided. Oh, Dumbledore was going to pay for this. Snape would too, but the Dursleys? He was going to make their lives a living hell. Harry sat there, his mind reeling with the information he had just absorbed. He read through one more time, a chill crawling down his spine as he shuddered involuntarily. The Imperious Potion is the Imperious Curse in liquid form. Surprisingly, it is not legal, but that can be reasoned with if the inquirer knows how difficult it is to make one. The ingredients and the recipes are long lost, but there is one potion's master who has the ability to recreate it. Severus Snape, modifier of the Wolfsbane, is widely recognized as the greatest potions master in Britain. Other European countries hold him in high esteem, and many had offered exorbitant sums of gold in exchange for his services. However, he became the potions master at Hogwarts due to his loyalty to Dumbledore. This potion must be used alone, or the drinker would suffer a condition in which they would not be able to fight off the potion. In other words, the person who commissions it will put in a hair or other part of their body, similar to a polyjuice draft. This results in total loyalty. It is rumored that one Bellatrix Black Lestrange was the recipient of one of these mixed potions. This gives a reason as to why the Lestranges, a neutral family, pledged allegiance to he who must not be named. There is one positive about this mixture of potion: it increases power, although artificially, and learning prowess. The main requirement of this potion is basilisk poison and acromantula hair. Neither of which are possible to attain, as it would take 200 years for a grown basilisk to get the most potency from its venom. The hair from an acromantula must be taken while it is in full health. It is unlikely that this potion will be recreated anytime soon. Rose Memory Potion. This potion can be explained by using a Muggle expression when one person has a more positive view of the same thing as another. This phrase is also used on naive people who do not believe something is as bad as it is. The expression is, "You are viewing the world through rose-tinted glasses." This potion suppresses the memories in which major negative feelings arise and flicks through more positive things, which make the drinker more susceptible to trust. The downsides are that it can be countered easily, and it can only focus on one thing at a time. For example, if you were to focus on making a troublesome child more manageable, then he would do that, nothing else. This potion must have ultimate clearance. In the current time frame, the most important members of the ministry have clearance of the whole set of spells and potions, whether they are dark or light. Amiability Potion. This is a simple mood-altering potion with little effect on people, however it makes the person calmer than usual. It is usually administered to children of great power so that their accidental magic does not cause much damage. He sighed, too emotionally exhausted to be angry, and filled with loathing for the old man. It was clouding his mind, so he went into his Pensive, watching a memory of his father. In the Pensive, James was walking down the aisle towards the Gryffindor table. He looked as if he was a fourth year, when he came across Snape. The greasy gid was holding what looked like an hourglass. Genuinely curious, he asked, "Hey Sevy, what's that you got there?" The hall quieted down to listen to this dialogue. "None of your business, Potter." He scowled at James, who put a hand to his heart as if Snape had struck a mortal blow. "Oh Sevy, how could you be so cruel?" he said in a high-pitched voice, drawing snickers from most of the audience. Snape snapped out, "It's a time-turner, so I can go and stop my previous future self from bedding your mother and creating you." The Slytherins broke out into laughter, which subsided quickly once they saw James grin. James bobbed his head up and down violently in Snape's direction, grinning all the while. Everyone else looked confused, but Dumbledore's eyes were twinkling. As always, he knew what James was going to say. "What in Merlin's name are you doing, Potter?" Snape snarled, looking quite menacing, but this did not faze James one bit. "I was just checking to see if there was any truth in what you said," James whispered theatrically, and everyone heard. Snape was still confused but did not show it. How does that help, or has your tiny mind finally gone over the edge? Well, Sevi, I reasoned, using my tiny brain, that if I was your son then I would be able to fling greaseballs at you from my head. What he said next was largely drowned out by the raucous laughter from the hall. Harry glanced across to his mother, who was trying and failing miserably to hold in a laugh. He himself laughed himself sick and somehow managed to control himself for the next memory. Fade in new memory. This one was different. He could hear his mother's thoughts. Lily sat on the sofa in the common room crying. The last time she had cried like this was when she had wasted a year in showing her feelings for James, only to find out that it was all an act. He was not arrogant. Well, yes, he was, but he was only arrogant in the things he earned. He was the heir to Gryffindor, yet he had not used his status to get attention. She only knew because she had overheard him the previous night. This time, though, she cried out of anger and frustration. She could not stand the prejudice against Muggles and the blatant hate, which was rampant in the school. Remus ran into the room and dragged her out towards the Quidditch pitch, where she saw a formal duel set up. She glanced anxiously at James as he stepped up onto the raised platform. Harry watched in undisguised awe as James brutally dealt with Snape, painfully and mercilessly. He had transfigured various items he had conjured previously into a variety of animas and objects. Snape was charged down 5 times by a bull, his physical shield only serving to preventing bones breaking, but he would have a huge bruise come the morning. He did not know how powerful his father was, but this gave an indication of it. Lily watched on as James's eyes got colder and harder. She had to stop this before Snape was killed. Snape's wand fell out of his hand and the count began. James seemingly ignored this and continued marching towards Severus with a growing cold demeanor. She ran up to him, put her arms around him, and rested her chin on his chest. He turned his cold eyes towards her, upon which he immediately softened. Snape by now had gathered his wand and fired a banishing spell, but Lily took the brunt of it, landing 10 feet away. James turned around and blasted a dark arts spell, Scello Destructo, right into Snape, causing his ribs and clavicle to break. Harry turned his attention back towards his parents, where James had gathered up Lily in his arms and was running towards the hospital wing. End memory. Snape had picked the wrong time to piss Harry off, especially when Harry was already pissed at him. Trying to push to the back of his mind, he looked over at the other cauldron he had running. It was a lineage potion. He wanted to find out about his family. It would be ready in an hour. He went out again for a walk this time and came across an excited group of students, all of which were in last year's DA. Harry. Oh, Harry, over here, we have something to show you, come check it out. He accepted the pile of parchment and looked through the first one. To Mr. Dean Thomas. Dear Mr. Thomas, enclosed within are your amended ordinary wizarding level results. Owl. We hope you have performed to your personal standards and we look forward to testing you again for your nastily exhausting wizarding tests. Grading. O stands for outstanding 2 owls. EE stands for exceeds expectations 1 owls. A stands for acceptable 1 owls. P stands for poor 0 owls. D stands for dreadful 0 owls. T stands for troll 0 owls. Your owls. Care of magical creatures. EE, Professor Rubius Hagrid. History of magic. D, Professor Binns. Astronomy. EE, Professor Sinistra. Charms. EE, Professor Flitwick. Divination. D, Professor Trelawney. Herbology. EE, Professor Sprout. Practical Transfiguration. EE, Professor McGonagall. Potions. A, Professor Snape. O, Professor Harry Potter. You have received 8 owls. Congratulations. Sincerely yours, Griselda Marchbanks, Wizarding Examinations Authority. Ministry of Magic. Harry was shocked to the core. They had their certificates redone just to acknowledge his help. He felt a lump in the back of his throat and he whispered out his thanks, not trusting his voice. Despite that, he felt a warm feeling inside as he looked through each parchment which had his name there instead of Umbridge. When he came to the last one, his eyes widened in wonder. To Mr. Harry James Potter. Dear Mr. Potter, enclosed within are your amended ordinary wizarding level results. Owl. We hope you have performed to your personal standards and we look forward to testing you again for your nastily exhausting wizarding tests. We congratulate you on record scores and will be monitoring your progress closely. Grading. O stands for outstanding 2 owls. EE stands for exceeds expectations 1 owls. A stands for acceptable 1 owls. P stands for poor 0 owls. D stands for Dreadful Zero Owls. T stands for Troll Zero Owls. Your owls. Care of magical creatures. O. Professor Rubius Hagrid. History of magic. D. Professor Binns. Astronomy. E. Professor Sinostra. Charms. O. Professor Flitwick. Top in the year. Divination. D. Professor Trelawney. Herbology. E. Professor Sprout. Practical Transfiguration. O. Professor McGonagall. Top in the year. Potions. O. Professor Snape, joint top in the year. Dada distinction. Self-taught, along with teaching other students, counts as 4 passes in OWL terms. You have achieved an acceptable at Newt level. Any marks received at Newt level will be added onto this. This gives you the option of taking extra advanced defense against the dark arts in addition to your normal Dada class. If you pass this course with an E, you will be automatically set into the 2nd year of Auror training. If you pass with an O, then you will start at the 3rd year of Auror training. However, this is a private study course. If you wish to take part, you may OWL the head of the Auror department, Kingsley Shacklebolt. You have received 14 owls. Congratulations. Sincerely yours. Griselda Marchbanks. Wizarding Examinations Authority. Ministry of Magic. Fuck, he works for the Bloody Order. I'll have to ask dear Minister Corny. Everyone started to cheer at Harry, not understanding his words. Harry grinned sheepishly. Unnoticed, Dumbledore watched him with n small amount of pride. He sighed at himself. He had to try to control Harry. Dumbledore remembered being in a similar situation as the boy. Dumbledore had thought he was immortal and had been handed his ass by the previous Dark Lord Persecutus. It had nearly killed him. Oh, Harry was good, of that, there was no doubt, but Dumbledore knew that he could beat him easily, as would Voldemort. The boy was still too rash. Severus had given Harry the Rose Memory Potion without the headmaster's consent, and now it seemed Harry would blame him. He knew Harry had been listening to him in the dungeons. He had set him up. Severus had brought most of the hate upon himself, as he knew Harry would not trust him again, but he really had no other choice. He was used to death, he was no longer affected by it, and perhaps it was his time to retire. Getting an idea, he asked Fawkes to deliver 12 books from his personal library to Harry's bed. Next to the old wizard, Phileas Flitwick nearly burst with pride. The boy was a true hero. The boy in him just had a massive boost of strength from his friends, for now the child was live and kicking. Suddenly a letter came by OWL. It was from Severus. Voldemort was coming. Flitwick's eyes widened as Dumbledore signaled the order to assemble at their pre-discussed points. Today it was make or break. If the order repelled them, they would gain self-confidence. If they lost, they would not be alive to regret it. Lily and James were walking through the Forbidden Forest. She had been riding on Prong's back until 2 red lights hit them. They both awoke, realizing they were under the binding spell, and started fighting against it. A few mocking laughs interrupted them. Hello, Potter, you muggle-loving bastard, and how sweet is this? We get the mudblood whore in one go. Are we not lucky today? What a privilege. Well, Potter, the Dark Lord asked us to bring you to him alive, but he did not say that we could not have a little fun. Therefore, we are going to see today if the pleasures of a mudblood whore are as good as one of the pure-blooded women. He went towards Lily and pulled off her robe, leaving her in a thin t-shirt, and her bra was visible through it. James fought off the curse and pulled out a wand, which had been concealed. He undid the curse on himself, then blasted the one near her away. Quickly releasing her from the hex and summoning their wands towards him, he fired another blasting curse, this time on the floor. The shower of dust allowed them to escape, but they were pursued. Lily was still shaking after her encounter with the Death Eater, and it turned into hate when the said minion came running towards her. She screamed incoherently and then did the first thing that came to her mind. Avada Kedavra. She felt sick after the wizard dropped lifeless before her. She turned away, but she saw James looking coldly at the other Death Eater and deliver a slashing curse to his throat. The man died slowly and in terrible pain. She threw up, not worried about James but the fact that she would be going to Azkaban. The Hogwarts staff arrived just as James killed the Death Eater, and they were horror-struck. Wordlessly, James turned around and picked up Lily in his arms. Dumbledore turned around and said only 3 words. My office, now. Everyone quickly made their way there eagerly, wanting to see what would happen to both the top students in school. The staff and the 2 students assembled within the office and sat, the anticipation growing with Dumbledore's every silent moment. Would one of you care to relate the happenings of the past half hour or so? Seeing as Lily was in too emotional a state, he told Dumbledore everything. The old man sat there with a pensive look on his face. It got more and more aged towards the end. Before he could speak, Amelia Bones, Barty Crouch and the minister himself entered through the fireplace and requested a retelling of the story. Disgruntled, James retold it and sat back listening for what punishment they would get. Crouch looked gleeful and spoke. "Miss Evans, you will be taken to Azkaban and will be detained there until your trial. Mr. Potter, you will join her until we get an accurate version of events." Lily was struck speechless and James grinned at Crouch evilly. "No." The three officials gaped at James. Lily turned an incredulous look at him and Dumbledore sat there with nothing other than his twinkling eyes. "No, Mr. Potter, you have been accused of practicing the dark arts. You will be coming with us." James grinned again and everyone else barring the headmaster looked at him as if he was mad. "If Lily Evans and I are expelled from this school and sent to the wizarding prison Azkaban, then I will." He paused for effect. Barty Crouch snapped at him. "Hurry up, Potter, we do not have time for your games." James just smirked again and whispered something to Lily and she turned to stare at him in awe. "Then, I, as the heir to Gryffindor, will let down all the wards that protect Hogwarts from dark wizards and muggles." Everyone paled around him. "You wouldn't dare." "Oh, I would, I assure you. But the children? They would die?" "No, the castle is mine. Therefore they would be ejected out of my home." James burst out gleefully, causing the people around him to rock back in shock. "What do you mean it is yours? The Ministry owns it," Amelia questioned. "Wrong. Lord Gryffindor, or dear old Gramps as I like to call him, owns 75 of the castle, and Salazar, as both the richest purebloods in England, the other 25. Both their wives, Muggleborn, Rowena Ravenclaw and, half-blood, Helga Hufflepuff respectively, came from poorer backgrounds but were notoriously gifted. The school was built on the virtues of Merlin. He was wise and craved knowledge, which was rampant in Ravenclaw, had excellent healing powers, and was surprisingly gentle with his friends. That is why we had Hufflepuff. Sly and cunning yet still brave and honor-bound created the basis for the two houses. When Helga was killed by Muggles, Salazar went insane and came back corrupted by black magic, a magic truly evil, not like dark arts, which could be used for good. He had a major case of bloodlust and killed Ravenclaw when he came back. Lord Gryffindor forgave him before they fought one last time and killed him with his sword. Salazar's only relative was Lord Gryffindor by a distant relationship, as illegitimate sons could not inherit from the father. The eldest son of Salazar swore that he would get revenge, creating the current conflict. "Therefore I own the castle and you have no say in what I do or say because this is private property in which my status as Lord Gryffindor gives me leeway to do." Taking Dumbledore's hesitant nod as confirmation, they left dejected and both Lily and James went back to their common room. On the way, he explained to her that some people deserve to die. By killing one, she had probably saved 50. She accepted it but could not dispel the feeling of guilt. Back outside Pensive, Dumbledore stood arguing with himself. On impulse he wrote a note and sent it. Harry got a note. Reading it, he pulled out the enchanted galleon and summoned his club around him. He read the note again. "Harry, Voldemort is here. Come with your group and positions them on the second-floor windows which face the entrance gate. It is the only way in for a large army, but I won't put students at risk. You, however, may come down to the front, as I believe you are a capable dueler." The DA stood, facing out of the upper windows, watching fearfully yet resolutely as their leader stood outside next to the old headmaster himself. Sounds of running from the Forbidden Forest made the Order, who were assembled either side of the powerful two, a little skittish. Albus raised his hand to signal the lowering of wands as Aberforth, Frederick Zabini, and Mundungus Fletcher came into view. They pulled into position without a word, and stayed quiet until the attack began. A cold feeling creeping into their veins signaled the assault. The DA leant back as a whole, whipped their wands and screamed in one voice. "Expecto Patronum!" Wilt Harry's solitary voice screamed out. "Destructovus Patronum!" A huge stag erupted, gleaming silver with razor-sharp antlers, charging and destroying a being, which looked like a small Dementor. He realized it was a Lethifold. He had never come across one before. Most of the Lethifolds were dispersed easily, but this allowed the way to be clear for Death Eaters and the battle began. Moody dropped 3 Death Eaters with brutal chest-crushing curses within the first few minutes. Kingsley had 2 down and was fighting off another couple with ridiculous ease, whilst Tonks was having trouble with her 1 Death Eater, Bellatrix. Harry attacked, unleashing the dark curse. Snape had been the victim of via James Potter. Scello Destructo. The Death Eater fell with an agonizing scream. Around 12 more had been stunned by stupefy spells cast from the DA up from the window. There were at least 3 Death Eaters for 1 light wizard. It was like a swarm of ants covering a few hapless insects. Harry took down another and another, finally blasting the third one 20 feet away. Dumbledore was having a field day, knocking out his foes with barely a flicker of his wand. 20 Death Eaters later, he finally took a stunner to the back which made him sway slightly. Then he started firing off harder and more brutal curses, which were barely classified as light magic. Soon the floor was littered with knocked out, dead or dying Death Eaters and very few Order members. Then came the terrible moment, which brought a cold fear into all but the 2 champions of the light. A being with glowing red eyes and a serpentine face swaggered into the line of fire. Dumbledore was too tired but stepped up anyway and the duel commenced. Spell after spell made the surrounding wizards' hairs stand on end as the large influx of magic had the effect of static electricity upon them. The 2 wizards transfigured and charmed, ducked and weaved throughout the duel. Dumbledore's advantage of 90 extra years of knowledge over Voldemort kept him in the duel, even through his exhaustion. Voldemort knew that he would lose, so he created a mass portkey, linking it to the dark mark and activated it. The anti-portkey wards stopped him, so he carried on dueling with Dumbledore. By now, all surrounding duels had ceased and they watched in awe, as the full armory from both was unleashed. Transfiguration, charms, curses, hex, dark arts and even wandless balls of magic. Suddenly Voldemort lowered his wand, with which the headmaster followed suit because of the honor of dueling. Voldemort grinned and screeched out in a high-pitched cackle. "I, Lord Voldemort, challenge Harry James Potter to a wizard's duel," shocking everyone. Everyone glanced uneasily at Harry, who was slightly panting from the previous duels. "I, Harry James Potter, accept," everyone gasped in shock whilst Dumbledore closed his eyes. The 2 faced off, walking in a circle appraising each other. Voldemort backed off in a dueling staff, prompting Harry to do the same. Then the duel began. "Obliterate!" Harry screamed. It hit Voldemort's shield, shattering it and knocking him to the ground. He got up quickly and sent a disarming charm back. "Avada Kedavra!" Both wizards shouted simultaneously and both hit their mark. Both wizards collapsed onto the ground but miraculously were still breathing. Slowly they got back up, shocking everyone who feared the worst. Voldemort grinned, his modified body allowing him to recover easier. He fired another green beam at Harry. A black blur took the killing curse for Harry, shocking Voldemort. He recovered quickly and spoke. Well, the little rat has sacrificed himself. Who knew he had it in him?" Harry looked down to see that it was indeed Peter Pettigrew. His eyes were lifeless, but his face was twisted in a triumphant and gleeful expression. "Time for you to die, Potter. Avada Ked." Suddenly the evil bastard disappeared along with all his minions and they felt a tingle of magic spread through them. Dumbledore looked at Harry and realized what must have happened. The boy was shaking, so he must have performed some powerful magic. Dumbledore grinned. The boy had taken down the portkey wards and put them up again. The first action was taxing, but the second was twice as worse. His respect went up a notch for the boy's ability. He was powerful, extremely so. Slowly everyone gathered into a circle and were joined by the cheering DA. "We shall discuss this at our meeting. The DA may attend it also. Please redirect yourselves to the Great Hall." Hours earlier Peter Pettigrew hid the Forbidden Forest with some of his brethren, waiting for their master to signal the attack, and the Lethifolds were having a bad effect on him. Lethifolds differed slightly from Dementors. They made you remember everything that you had lost as well as all your worst memories. He was currently remembering when he had held the 6-month Harry in his arms and was playing with him. He remembered Sirius telling him what an honor he had achieved as Lily and James put their trust in him, and indeed their lives as well as their sons, into his hands. He had betrayed them. He would never again play with Harry, nor would Harry be happy that his first word was, "Wormy." Never again would Lily cook for him and his brothers. Nor would they laugh until the sun went down. Never again would Peter fly around with James and Harry against Remus or Sirius, and never again would Harry mutter, "I love you," as he had a few days before Peter betrayed his parents. In addition, the boy had saved him. The idiotic, rash, and arrogant boy had saved his life even though it would have been correct to take his life. It reeked of James and he had used that reason to escape with his life. Manipulating the boy's desire to follow his father's example as a warrior of the light, he had survived with what little dignity he had left dissipating. He had given all that for someone who tortured him for his mistakes and for someone who could not kill a child. Tonight he would pay back some of that, even if it killed him. 2 hours later Peter jumped across and muttered, "I'm sorry," to Harry before he took the killing curse. The words went unheard in the screaming background, but Peter would never know. Harry James Potter was exhausted. Voldemort was back at full strength and in his anger had battered his occlumency shields. Harry had barely kept him out, but it had taken a lot out of him. Neither man would have much strength left if they continued. Throwing all caution to the wind, Harry muttered Legilimens by focusing on his scar and pushed as gently as possible into Voldemort's mind. Voldemort was currently recuperating from his strenuous attack and he was not focused on blocking out foreign intrusions. If Harry kept quiet and his emotions in check, he would be able to sneak in without being noticed. He entered pushing as far as he could go without disembodying himself. What he saw made him slightly uncomfortable. The walls around were dark and damp. There were numerous instruments on display, quite evidently for interrogation purposes. There were some wickedly hooked ones, like ancient Egyptian tools for taking out and preserving organs. Others were blunt, flat, able to inflict pain without inflicting permanent damage. There were other weapons too, some swords, impeccably designed and weighted. There was something, which resembled an Olympic hammer with spikes. Harry lost himself in the display and spent a good 5-10 minutes admiring the more eye-catching pieces. Coming to his senses, he plowed on, looking for either knowledge he could steal or some sort of method to killing him. He finally came to a block, containing silvery liquid, and he reached out and touched the surface tentatively. He was assaulted by memories of transfiguration, how he created the dark mark, and surprisingly of animagus training. It was painful, so Harry put up his shield slightly, regulating the amount of knowledge flowing into his mind. Finally, when he finished, he walked over to other blocks. Similarly, he was assaulted with memories of charms and care of magical creatures. Wondering Voldemort would take such a subject, he continued looking for more blocks. When he touched the next one he regretted it. He would regret it more lately, but for now, it seemed unlikely. Wave after wave of memories hit him. Tom Riddle being beaten by the orphanage caretaker. Dumbledore as deputy headmaster being overruled by Dippet and having to send Tom back to the orphanage. Being cursed magically and verbally. Being D by the more sadistic Slytherin girls. Even one in which the girls had him tied down whilst one was suckling and biting him. The others were sending cutting curses at his chest. The Cruciatus, Dumbledore finding Tom, emotionally and physically battered. Dumbledore's tears dropping onto his chest as the old man held him in his arms. Dumbledore performing an exorcism on him. Pain, terrible pain, feeling empty after the exorcism, anger at everyone. Raping the girls back one by one whilst getting Nagini to choke them. Moaning Myrtle walking in on him casting memory charms on the defiled girls. A foreign presence in his mind, egging him on, forcing him to learn the dark arts. A voice in his head telling him that Dumbledore does not care for anyone, just wants to manipulate him. That his twinkly eyes are just that way because he sees a way to gain greater power. Regret, when he cursed Dumbledore from behind his back, forcing himself to turn away and not cast the killing curse. Feeling the compassion draining out of him after leaving Hogwarts. Despair overcoming all emotion, finally finding salvation, horror. The thoughts were becoming jumbled now, his lust overtaking him and forcing himself onto Myrtle, torturing her and accidentally discovering that he was a parcel-mouth and opening the chamber. Killing Myrtle using the basilisk, and feeling inhuman from time to time. Finding books on ancient black magic, ancient languages, the name Voldemort coinciding with his name. The meaning of which is the dark angel of death in some long-lost language. Voices shouting at him, "Mudblood, bastard, does the little Mudblood enjoy our sexual games? More? Come on girls, I think he must be the most sexually active 14-year-old boy ever, don't you think girls? Bite him. Pain, physical, trauma, waking up every night screaming because one of the girls was toying with him. The boys watching with amusement as both he and another half-blood girl, Amelia R.D. Fourth year asking Amelia out, joy as he danced with her. The first night they made love, all previous trauma fleeing him for a few short moments. Dumbledore asking him about his future plans. Dumbledore's eyes lighting up when he said that he wanted to be a transfiguration teacher and eventually headmaster. Sixth year joy as he found out Amelia is pregnant. They discuss the names they would choose for both boy and girl. Abandoning all thoughts of getting revenge as Dumbledore delightedly accepts to be the baby's godfather. Cold, burning rage as he finds out she is D and killed. Feeling nothing, no hate, no rage, nothing even when Dumbledore is holding him in his arms and sitting there in despair. Feeling nothing when people taunt him about Amelia. McGonagall watching him with tears in her eyes, walking over and kissing him on the cheek. Flitwick coming over, embracing him in a half-hug, and muttering something about, "They will get theirs." Dippet telling him to stop making up stories, not allowing him to be resorted. Dumbledore nearly being sacked because he is protesting against Dippet's decision. A woman, Pandora Snape, watching him with calculating eyes and gesturing to him to follow her out of the common room. Feeling nothing as the woman pleasured him, feeling nothing when he toyed with her. She straddled him and bound her body to his. Her saying something about women being more enduring or exciting. Asking him to cast the Cruciatus, her screaming whilst writhing against him, still feeling nothing. No power, no joy, nothing. Pandora smiling at him whilst begging for more, her screaming at him about being a homosexual because he had yet to ejaculate. The final straw, after she left, returning to the common room as he followed. He walked in to see his stuff strewn all over the floor, pictures of Amelia burning, the baby's clothes burning. Pandora smirking at him. The lock of hair from Amelia gone missing. Seeing Amelia making love to other girls. Her screaming in joy as they pushed up against her, her screaming to Tom that he was useless and that she did not want his baby, so she faked her death and got an abortion. Collapsing onto the floor, everyone in the common room laughing at him. Amelia turning into Lara Bulstrode, realization as the room turned to look at him horrified. A woman screaming about red eyes, the distinctive smell of polyjuice floating around. Succumbing to darkness, watching himself in the mirror with his eyes glowing red, his features in the mirror twisting into another face. Salazar Slytherin grinning at him, the man's face looked exactly as it does on the portrait. The mirror speaking, "Let the darkness embrace you." Giving in to him. Killing Dippet, a spirit rushing into him, power unleashing inside of him. Tears, recovery, gaining strength, powerful, death, meeting Amelia, leaving his body and finally a different person inside him. Triumphant. Harry pulled back, severely ill and disorientated. He sat down trying to get back his bearings. He looked up and saw a skeletal figure being tortured by another snake-faced creature, and suddenly it all made sense, and it scared him shitless. He pulled back again, out of Tom's head this time, and fled towards the headmaster's office, forgetting about any of the valuable knowledge he had learned or his lack of respect for the man. He fled up the stairs and burst into the office, startling the staff who was gathered there. "Harry, what is the matter, my boy?" the headmaster asked, showing something akin to concern. "I know why Voldemort is so powerful, and I know why he has the same amount of knowledge as you, even though he is 90 years younger," Harry burst out. He felt lost and vulnerable again. He felt out of place in what this could be thought of as a game of kings. Dumbledore paled, some remorse showing in his eyes, most likely about Tom Riddle. "Speak, Harry," he urged. "Voldemort means the Dark Angel of Death. It's not Tom anymore, and it's his Naren, ancient language, namesake." Vector's eyes widened and she fell of her chair. She tried to claw her way back on, but she was too shaken. Harry could sympathize with her. Had it not been for his shit life, he would not have been prepared for such a bombshell. "Salazar Slytherin," she screeched. Suffice to say, when Dumbledore fell back in shock and half of the staff fainted in shock, things were probably at their lowest. Dumbledore now had a look on his face as he had just figured things out, and he did not look too happy about it. Finally, he spoke, and his words just made Harry's task so much harder. "Harry, it makes sense now. You and Tom Riddle are Gemini twins." At Harry's confused look, he elaborated. "It means you two counts as one soul, even though you are two separate souls. You were not prophesized to kill Tom. You were prophesized to save him. He had a hard life, as you have had a hard life. He suffers now and you suffer now. He is powerful and you are powerful. He is a Parselmouth and you are a Parselmouth. You share brother ones and you share a unique mind connection. One more thing. Gemini twins cannot commit suicide unless both do so at the same time. Both willingly, therefore his power went to you. He is quite dead. When Slytherin tried to kill you with a killing curse, he was in Tom's body, and it bounced off instead and created a mind connection. When the curse rebounded, it cast out Slytherin from the body, but since he had tied himself in place of Tom, he fed off your life force, through his scar, to live. It explains why you were so little, because magic generally compensates for food in younger children. Your task has gotten that much harder, Harry. Kill Salazar, or risk your own death. Silence descended and the teachers watched the boy with horror-struck gazes. Harry felt sick to the pit of his stomach. He fled from the office and out onto the Quidditch pitch. He ran as fast as he could and as far as he could, not knowing where he was going. Hours later, a boy with messy black hair and emerald green eyes could be seen looking up into the air and screaming something. If the observer were a werewolf, they would have heard the words loud and clear. Why me? Why can't you just leave me in peace? All I want is a family, nothing major. Why can't you just leave me alone? Voldemort, I am going to kill you. Hear me, I will kill you. Lightning crashed and the sound of thunder could be heard for miles around. The wind rustled his hair and exposed his scar. The werewolf who was listening felt his heart clenching. The boy was just like his father. The resemblance and mannerisms were uncanny. Even the protect everyone at the cost of my life, and never show your hurt, be strong always attitude. When Snape said that Harry was a carbon copy of his father, he was not far wrong. His mind drifted back to a similar moment back in his 4th year. Remus hid in the shadows, with Peter, Sirius, and Arabella Fig, the daughter. Some other Gryffindors watched as James looked up into the air, including the group of Lily Evans and their friends. Everyone thought he had gone mad, as he was red in the face and punching the oak a few moments earlier. Lily Evans thought to get him back for some of his pranks, but then she noticed a red envelope on the floor behind him. She gasped and her hands flew to her mouth and she muttered loudly. Red note. Several curse words followed from the males in the group, especially from Sirius. Peter was trembling badly and the other girls were weeping softly. Remus closed his eyes. It was the dreaded red note, the note from hell as it were. A black note was issued if parents were killed, a brown one if other family members were killed. Finally, a red note was issued if you were the last survivor. The magic saturated the air and soon the wind began to pick up strength and twist around the gathering people. Dumbledore came out sucking the magic in through his wand, but it had little effect. James still had not noticed the group behind him. He started screaming. Why, you bastard? Why? They could not do anything to you. They were children. Why? My parents were no threat to you. I'll kill you. I'll cut out your fucking heart and eat it, then shit it back all over your face. I'm coming for you. Lily ran out and put her arms around him. The marauders followed suit and the huddle calmed him down a little. Dumbledore quickly sucked in as much magic as he could and threw it into the wards, strengthening them a twofold. Other things happened which Remus still could not believe to this very day. Sir Nick had come to the entrance of the school and looked at James, who was stumbling in. Welcome home, James Potter. End flashback. The storm was reaching its peak and Remus knew what he had to do now. He ran outside, pushing through the water like magic in the air and wrapped his arms around Harry. The order that had assembled to watch moved out of the way so Fred and George could make their way through. Others such as Ginny and Luna did not have the strength to make it, so the others watched from afar. Harry realized that he was channeling too much magic. If he did not stop, it would have the effect of a nuclear warhead. Britain most likely would wiped off the face of the earth. Drawing his wand, he pointed it towards the wards and made them absorb as much magic as possible. What happened next was a huge stroke of luck for the wizarding world. The wards expanded over the Forbidden Forest, allowing a greater distance in the apparition point. The castle lit up in the dark, it grew bigger, and the flames on torches roared to life. The suits of armor snapped to attention, and the ghosts gaped in awe as the magic drilling through the castle. Everyone in the hospital wing woke up, fully healed, and all the older teachers felt their aches and pains go away rejuvenated. The magic still flew around them. Finally Remus pulled Harry towards the entrance, and as it had years ago with James, Sir Nick was standing there, grinning and being flanked by all the other ghosts. 2 lines of armor lined up, in saluting mode, creating an aisle for Harry to walk through. Sir Nick spoke again. Welcome home, Harry Potter, Lord of Hogwarts. The end. Now we will see you in the next video.